Life sucks being a predator. I'm a male in my early 20s, still in college, and before anyone freaks out, I'm not going to go out and R-word a young person. Seriously, gay people don't go around R-wording men. Straight people don't go around R-wording women. Why the F does everyone think Preds are going to go crazy and R-word the first young person who looks cute? By the way, I'm gay. Also, I have to refer to them as young people in this context instead of, an actual name. But yes, we are talking about a little person. Very disgusting. I've been this way for a while. No parental abuse, no early childhood incidents. In high school, I kept wondering why other kids could find adults attractive. I waited for myself to start being attracted to older people, but it never really happened. Now I'm almost done with college, and after several failed relationships with people my own age, I'm pretty much ready to give up. I'm tired of not letting my partners down. I'm tired of not feeling the same way back. Jesus, when we have intimacy, I can't even finish without fantasizing about younger people. My sister knows I'm set up to get help. I'm so tired of people saying help is the solution, as if people have any idea what help entails. Am I going to discover that I'm actually attracted to people my age and my attraction to younger people is part of a traumatic childhood I don't remember? Maybe I'll be told that I just have to develop coping mechanisms for dealing with the fact that I'll never be able to get into the kind of relationship I want to be in. Or maybe I'll go through some therapy to convert me to a more normal, intimate preference. The same kind that homosexuals of the past were forced through. And you know what the worst part about this is? More than the fear and the paranoia and the chronic anxiety, it's the fact that I can't even trust my own judgment anymore. I have tried so hard to convince myself that having intimacy with young people is inherently wrong, but I really can't. It doesn't make sense to me that having a finishing would be fundamentally detrimental, and I think that anything beyond that is a factor of culture and society. But who am I to say that? I'm probably wrong anyway. After all, 99% of the rest of the world disagrees. I see people online be racist. I see religious people openly talk about how they know God exists. All these groups of people are so sure of themselves. Maybe I'm just as delusional as they are, but it really doesn't matter, because as I said, I wouldn't want to get into a relationship with a younger person at this point anyway. And really, I don't care if I'm right or wrong or why I feel this way, because at the end of the day, I'm still in the same position. Maybe in 100 years, people will look back and wonder why everyone hated predators. Or maybe someone will invent a cure that cures being a predator and no one will have to deal with it anymore. In any case, none of that's going to happen in my lifetime. As far as I can see, there's only one way out, and I think we both know what that is. I guess I should probably state my opinion on intimacy in general and see if anyone can convince me otherwise. When I said that I didn't think having intimacy with a younger person was inherently wrong, I meant it. But I didn't mean that having intimacy with a younger person doesn't cause damage in practice. For the time being, I'm going to ignore arguments about pregnancy and STDs because they don't apply in my situation anyway, and because I don't believe that being a predator can be rejected solely because of them. I can always remember thinking that contemporary views of intimacy were warped. Even as a kid, I didn't like not being able to talk about intimacy. I had all these questions like most kids do, but I was too embarrassed and ashamed to ask them. Later on, I learned that there are appropriate times and places for those questions. I still don't know why talking about intimacy ever needs to be inappropriate. Being unclothed in public is something that still bothers me a lot. Why would it be illegal to walk around unclothed in your natural state of being? Is there something inherently damaging about seeing another person's no-no square? I could still be arrested and put on a S offenders list for it. Situations like that scream hysteria at me, and I don't see how anyone can tell me with a straight face that constantly covering your body around other people is healthy. I see a lot of people telling me that being touched as a young person is awful. I agree. It's horrible, and I'm sorry. I really am. I'm sorry that younger people are being abused or exploited or put in a position they don't want to be. I'm sorry that it's embarrassing or awkward or just plain painful to talk about. And I'm sorry there wasn't anyone around to stop it, because if I was there, I would, and there's no excuse for ignoring something like that. However, I don't think that all experiences at a young age are necessarily R-word. I know that's hard to hear, and I'm about to argue that even seemingly consensual, intimate experiences can cause damage. But let's be honest, not all childhood intimate experiences are R-word. You could argue that they all technically are, and I guess legally that's true, but practically speaking, they are not. I know people, several people, in real life, they've had intimacy with adults at ages as really young, and they don't regret it. Again, I'm not saying this is the norm, but I'm not going to submit to the argument that having intimacy with a younger person is always R-word. It may be irresponsible and dangerous, but the other party doesn't always regret it. I feel like the main argument that younger people can't consent to intimacy fails because intimacy shouldn't be something that requires responsibility. I think that in contemporary society, we always associate intimacy with a certain kind of commitment, at least some, and responsibility. And I don't think that has to be the case. I think that intimacy can just be an expression of love or even just pleasure. Let's paint a picture. What if you grew up in an alternate universe where intimacy was completely liberated? Again, ignoring pregnancy and STDs. What if people walked around completely unclothed and no one would care? Young people were taught at a young age about intimacy, how to have intimacy, and to say no. Do you really think that intimate experiences, even unpleasant ones, would hold the same emotional baggage? We teach young people from a young age to cover their bodies under clothing. We purposefully hide intimacy from them until they're old enough to understand it. I don't think this is healthy. I don't think this is ethical. And I think that it causes a lot of questions and emotional issues for the majority of people growing up, especially when they get into their first intimate experience. The idea that intimacy destroys a young person's innocence is ridiculous, in my opinion. We shouldn't hide intimacy from young people. And in an ideal world, it wouldn't matter if I had intimacy with a young person or not, because intimacy wouldn't be taken that seriously. It would be seen as a normal urge to explore and have fun with, and not suppressed while at the same time obsessed with like it is today. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because I don't live in that kind of world. And the people who argue against being a predator are right. Having intimate experiences at a very young age will screw you up. Can you imagine being in that position? Someone doing something to you in a place where you're taught your whole life shouldn't be touched, not knowing what is happening or why you're feeling that way? Even if you're older, let's say middle teenage years, and you want to have a intimate experience with another person, is it worth it to deal with the pressure? Not being able to tell anyone? Not knowing whether what you did was right or if you're really just fucked up and you don't realize it yet? Not knowing whether you screwed up the other person? When society makes something damaging that isn't really damaging, they still cause real damage. I am confident that if we lived in a world where young people were taught about intimacy and how to say no, we wouldn't have nearly as many predators running around. I'm not arguing that such a society will ever appear, and I'm not saying that it would be some sort of utopia, but I do think that our current views about intimacy are completely skewed. So now I live in this society where I can't have relationships with the younger people I want to, not because the relationship itself is wrong, but because in an attempt to protect young people, they end up doing more harm than I did. But I'd be just as responsible because I enabled it to happen. This is what the world is like, seen through the eyes of a predator. And now let's get into some of the top comments. It really seems like you are constructing a warped worldview in order to justify future young person abuse. Another commenter says, what is your stance on illegal content involving minors? And the OP responds saying, I've seen a bit of it. To be honest, it doesn't really turn me on. Jesus Christ, man. This is just truly one of the most disgusting confessions I've ever read, and just comments. OP is disgusting and vile. But let's continue with his comment. Most of it isn't very good, and you never know what kind of position those young people are put in, whether or not they're being forced into it. In terms of legality, I don't think the mere possession, distribution, or viewing of it should be illegal, because I don't think it's okay to imprison people for viewing images. The argument has been that the existence of illegal content involving minors continues to torment the victim. I'm sure if I was R-worded at a young age and pictures of me were put on the internet, I would feel shitty about it too. But even though the notion might upset me greatly and even cause me difficulty recovering, as a victim, I still wouldn't be directly affected by the viewing on a case-by-case basis. And I'm not going to read the rest of the comment. The comment just gets worse and worse. It's actually just beyond disgusting. This is one of the actually worst accounts of just a story or a confession I've ever read on Reddit. This is truly horrifying, and I'm not going to read the rest of his comment like I said. Let's continue on to another comment. One user says, the worst thing about all of this is how well spoken and logical you are about it. You make sure to reassure everyone that you aren't dangerous, that you are seeking therapy, and you even self-deprecate enough to let all of Reddit know you are sane. Yeah, you understand what you feel is wrong, but you can't change it kind of thing. You're right on about a lot of things. There are circumstances where young adults want and consent to intimacy without harm. Our society's aversion to appropriate intimate education is harmful. Our broken society doesn't make you right, or okay, or safe around young people. You can't see it because you right through the eyes of a predator, but that is what you are. You are never going to love or comfort the young person you have a relationship with. What you are going to do is destroy that young person's life. They're an object to you, and as a means to an end, you have convinced yourself you only want to offer them happiness, which is why you are so dangerous. As you get older, the fantasies will grow. Your relationships, while failures, at least distracted you and gave you temporary substitutes. When you give up on those, you'll get lonelier and lonelier. You won't suppress your desires. You'll start to fixate on them. You will eventually turn to illegal content involving minors. You might never go looking for it, but sooner or later, by subconscious design or accident, you'll see it. Then you will slip and the obsession will grow. You will hoard it. Periodically, you will try to fix and distance yourself, deleting all of it, but then you'll come back. Hopefully, this is where you will get caught and go to prison. You will be required to register as a S-word offender and ostracized by society. Your life will go on, but you will at least be a monitored and semi-controlled threat. If you don't get caught with the illegal material, maybe you will be the guy that goes to the park to read young people's books. Or you might be the guy that violates your girlfriend's young brother. If you get away with it, things will get worse for you. You will always take it further. All of this is enabled by the little mental trick you play on yourself, convincing yourself that a young person wants to have you as his loving partner. But the sick society you live in has deprived him of that choice. I've put people like you in jail for a very long time. Your predilection to young people is nothing new to me. Your confession in response was everything I expected. I don't necessarily believe that this is your fault. You may not be a victim of trauma. What you are is an evil anomaly of humankind. You are the person every loving parent fears. You see a young person smile and feel arousal. You can't help what you are, but what you are is evil nonetheless. The responsible choice for you is to seek chemical, I can't say the word, but an operation so you no longer feel arousal, so you can never hurt anyone. Then again, we can no longer execute you in the United States. I would, just so you know. My instincts as a male are to protect my young. This is too long for Reddit to read, so some people will downvote it for that. My unapologetic statement that you should be executed will make it even worse. Not many people will read this, but I hope that you read this. Because if what you say is true, you need to know that you have a sickness to which there is no cure. If you cannot incapacitate your ability to act on your desires, you will ruin your life and eventually the life of someone's loved one. And when you do, I will find you. It may not be me personally, but rest assured, you will die in prison. This is what your world is like, seen through my eyes. And I think I'm done reading comments because I'm too grossed out, to be honest. I've never been as shocked and disgusted and horrified as a comment section before, because a lot of the comments here are actually people who see young people the same way as him. They defend the OP. They say, oh, you don't have a problem. That's totally okay that you think that way. And so it became, honestly, a cesspool of people that think the exact same way as the OP. And some people in the comments are saying, hey, you're not a criminal yet. It's fine. You're not going to become a criminal. People who think this way will eventually act on it. Even though they are just fantasies right now, allegedly, he's still viewed illegal content involving minors. He says, oh, that's totally fine. I don't think it's bad that you can view illegal content involving minors. I think you should be able to. This guy keeps coping and defending against his problem. And to be honest, I just feel beyond grossed out because this became a cesspool for people defending and trying to talk with the OP. And it's really gross seeing the way they interact with each other because they think the same way. They like young people. They don't think that the way they think is wrong. They don't view their worldview as completely terrible and disgusting. And just, man, this post really just grossed me out. And I'm sorry for my yapping, but this just made me feel sick. And even a comment right here, someone says, as a parent, your words make me feel sick. And I agree. And then someone actually replies to that saying, as someone who has been abused, the comments defending him make me want to cry. And then someone replies to that saying, the fact that you were downvoted is fucking sick. Glad to see this post brought out all of the creeps and predators and their sympathizers. It's a sick world we live in. And to anyone downvoting the victims here, take a long, hard look at what you're defending. Rationalizations of adult / young people relationships. Absolutely sick. And I forgot to mention that. The people that are coming out as victims and saying, hey, I was violated as a young person, as a very young person, they are being downvoted and told they are wrong for feeling that way by the preds and by the predators. I mean, what a sick area of the internet I'm in right now with this post. I really thought that every single comment would be condemning the OP. I mean, that's how it should be. But surprisingly, like I said, there is a lot of people coming out of the woodwork and sympathizing with him and saying, no, you're right. It's right to think that way. Just beyond disgusting. And this was posted 14 years ago, and there has been no update since. So we don't know what ended up happening to the OP or if the OP had any other disgusting thoughts. But leave your thoughts down below and on to the next one. When I was deployed in Iraq, I killed 7 people. I feel nothing. I suppose the no regrets tag fits the best. I feel worse about not caring what I did. When I was deployed in Iraq, I killed 7 people. I've never been a fighter. I couldn't imagine taking someone's life. I went into the military because my father always wanted me to follow after him and his father, and I really didn't have much else to do with my life. I always heard about the stories of soldiers in shock, coming home with PTSD and mentally broken. I didn't think I'd have to kill anyone. I wasn't really worried. I didn't have a great life, and the only person I left behind when I shipped out was my father. I wasn't exactly clinging to life and figured, if nothing else, time in the military would strengthen me as a person. There was no real hesitation when it happened. Morals didn't come into question when I had to pull the trigger to save myself and the men who would go on to save my ass countless times. I wasn't shooting children or innocent civilians, and it really didn't even feel like I was killing somebody. Everybody kept asking if I was okay and ignoring anything I said that wasn't no. I'm not a psychopath. I'm not someone who's been fighting to stay alive their entire lives. I'm grateful to whatever powers are in this world that I'm not as damaged as I should be, but I don't know why I'm fine. I shouldn't be. I don't feel less human. I don't feel like a hero. I don't have nightmares about what I did, and that scares me more than what I've done. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, fellow Iraq vet here, on mobile, sorry if the formatting is shit. The fact that you aren't haunted by your experience doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. The math in a straight up firefight was always simple in my mind. They're trying to kill you and yours. Stop them. Real war isn't Spielberg directed. You don't have to be torn apart, agonizing over every life path that led each side to that moment. People come to terms with what happened over there in their own ways. Some never do. If you feel like somehow you're missing some epiphany or self-awareness, take a moment to be grateful that your strength of will saw you through. Be grateful and continue on with your life. As someone who did come back a little fucked up, I'm not mad that you didn't. I'm glad you're okay. Your result is the result I wish we had all ended up with. And I'm not gonna shit on you because that didn't happen. All that said, if you're feeling about relative lack of feelings do continue to cause you disquiet, go talk it over with a professional. It may be that the itch in your mind is the beginning of something that hasn't surfaced yet. Establish support before something has an opportunity to come out of nowhere. Another user says, if they're trying to kill you and yours, you kill them first. You did what most people would have done, and it doesn't make you a monster. Another user says, Afghanistan vet here. I've killed quite a few in my day and never felt the slightest twinge of any emotion whatsoever. It was me or them. They were at fault the moment they picked up the weapon and pointed it my way. Men, women, or children. I'm not giving up seeing my family again to one of those pieces of trash. That's why I'm here now and they're not. Don't lose any sleep at night either. I was R-worded and never told my husband. I got pregnant from the R-word and my husband thought it was his and wanted to keep it. But I got an operation to have the baby removed and he was devastated. He still has never forgiven me, and I have never told him I was R-worded. In the second year of our marriage, I got R-worded. Brutally. I was out with my friends at a bar, and a guy grabbed me into his alleyway and then into a car. He had a knife against my back and kept saying he's gonna stab me. He had this weird face covering thing. I couldn't see his face well, but he had sunglasses and a baseball cap. They brought me into the car. There was another guy in there, guy with huge sunglasses and a baseball cap as well. They were clearly trying to cover their face. I was crying and wanted to scream, but I remembered the guy had a knife. They forced me to do some unspeakable things to him. Then they brought me to some empty car lot and brought me outside and did some more unspeakable things. I was still crying, and it lasted for hours. They would do it with multiple people, and then they left. And they said they would kill me if I told anyone, and that they have my picture. I didn't fight back, so they didn't physically beat me or anything. All I had were some bruises from when I fell, and some other things from the things they did to me. I was stuck in the middle of nowhere, with like 25 missed calls from my friends who were at the bar. I obviously shouldn't even need to express how horrible it was, how traumatic. This isn't my confession. My confession is that I never told my husband. Ever. I was so horribly ashamed of what happened, and so devastated and horrified and embarrassed, I knew it would absolutely destroy my husband and find out what happened to me, so I decided to never tell him. I told him I fell, and that was the bruises. It wasn't only about protecting him from knowing the truth, but it was also that he would absolutely demand we go to the cops. I did not want to go to the cops. They had my picture. They were likely organized criminals. I didn't want to risk anything with those types. There were certain things which didn't add up in my story, like where the hell was I for 4 to 5 hours while my friends thought they lost me, but he never asked more. He just believed me. Then I got pregnant. I didn't want him to find out. I just wanted to get rid of it as soon as possible. We had been using contraceptives, so there was no chance it was him. We also hadn't had intimacy at all since the incident. Not necessarily because of the incident, but he had a huge cast on his knee, so we had been sort of not having intimacy a lot, but regardless. The last time we had intimacy was 3 days before the R word. Except he found the pregnancy test, and I had to tell him that I was getting an operation to have the baby removed. I nearly had an emotional breakdown. I couldn't tell him I was R-worded, so he thought it was his baby. I just couldn't deal with it. I just told him over and over, I can't have this baby. Then I got the operation, and he just looked horribly sad and depressed. We got over it. It's been 13 years now, and we now have 2 kids. But to this day, he thinks it was his baby. And he has no idea I was R-worded. That was the worst time of my life. The R word was horrific. But the operation and knowing that my husband thought it was his baby, and the desperation in his face when he couldn't get an answer as to why I was getting rid of his kid, trying to find answers, and me just bottling up and not giving answers to him, that was horrible. That was the worst time of my life. He has never brought it up before in arguments we have had. He knows there was something behind why I had the operation, but he never knew why. And me keeping the secret from him has always haunted him. And now let's get into some of the top comments. One user says, just tell him. It was hard for me to tell my boyfriend too, but he'll be understanding. He's your husband. He won't hate you. He'll probably be mad instead. Mad at the people who did that to you. Another user says, it must be really hard keeping a secret like this. I can't imagine what you suffered through, and then having to go through it alone. I'm so sorry. Another user says, while ultimately it's totally your decision, marriage is kind of about sharing with your partner. He deserves to know, and you deserve to feel free. Obviously, this is really weighing on you, and it may be really bad for a few weeks while he tries to come to terms with it, but you'll feel so much better after this weight is lifted. He loves you, and you love him, and in telling him, you'd be able to remove the block that is keeping you from being content. But of course, I don't know all the details, and it is totally your choice to keep it a secret or not. Don't feel pressured, but do consider how you might feel if you told him. My confession is not something necessarily about me, but more of a secret that I know and have been keeping for a while now. I've never experienced or even got exposed to this specific topic, so I want to preface this story by saying, I currently am still struggling on how to even react, feel, or act towards it. I just hope getting it out of my system will help. If anyone has any genuine advice, please feel free to share. For context, I grew up in a large family with lots of cousins that are closer in age with one another. I'm 26 female. We all range through the 1 to 7 age gaps. We had a very fun and vivid childhood because of that. As we grew older and started to do our own thing and go our own ways, some cousins grew a bit distant. Some moved further away from home, while others grew a lot closer and became more present in my life. These are the ones my confession is about today. These two cousins of mine are siblings and both male. PJ being the oldest, around 34 years old now, and John, his younger sibling, 30 years old. Growing up, we all naturally looked up to PJ, because not only was he the oldest, but the coolest in our eyes. The first one to throw house parties, had multiple rock bands, was very expressive, lively, opinionated, and knowledgeable, be it on politics, philosophy, or on cool underground music. Since our family is on the more conservative side, when I was younger, I basically saw him as the rock star of the family, LOL. Fast forward to more recent times, I ended up developing an even closer relationship to both of my cousins, PJ and John, and we started hanging out together more often than not, which was something I felt really happy about. We were developing a solid friendship now as adults, and getting to experience that with people I grew up with and trusted all my life felt heartwarming. We would vent, share family advice, gossip, have philosophical discussions, enjoy music, and reminisce of good old times together. As time went by, I started noticing a pattern in which PJ would actively avoid talking about his personal life, and I would only find out there was something going on eventually through John, his younger sibling and my cousin. John, on the other hand, is a lot more open about sharing personal details of his life, We built that trust and openness over time. So with John, I always felt like we could share anything with each other more naturally. About a year ago, PJ was going through a rough breakup with his girlfriend of 5+ years. She was part of the family at that point, so I was curious about the reason for the breakup. At that time, I'd ask him what happened, but he never gave a direct or clear answer. He would always say things in broad terms, such as they were fighting more often, but that he still thought she was an incredible person. Things of that nature. Since he was never one to open up easily, I decided to not push it and make him more uncomfortable, so I didn't ask any further questions regarding that. They ended up months in a cycle of breaking up and getting back together and then breaking up again. I knew they were going through some shit because occasionally I'd meet up with John and he would update me on things. At some point, he told me PJ started abusing booger sugar again, a problem he already dealt with in the past, and he was then trying to hide it from his girlfriend and deny the whole thing. The problem is, booger sugar not only obviously makes him act differently, but he also has diagnosed epilepsy. So he would do the booger sugar whenever he had the chance, then proceed to have a convulsion. John, being basically the only person he trusted with everything, had to deal with this situation for a good chunk of his life, having to pretty much babysit his older brother to make sure he wouldn't die by choking himself whenever he decided to go on booger sugar benders. This loop continued for a few more months when they eventually broke up. A couple of weeks later, PJ was already introducing me to his new girlfriend. Nothing outside the ordinary since he's the serial dater type, and all seemed to be going well at first. Even though most of the time I've met him at our local bar, he was clearly under the effect of something. I don't know which drug precisely. Also, John was busier with work, so I'd meet him less often but continued to hang out with PJ and his new girlfriend occasionally. Fast forward to more recent times. I coincidentally became close friends with a mutual old friend of PJ's this year. This friend also happens to be best friends with PJ's now ex-girlfriend, so he knew everything that went down at the time. We were hanging out, just chatting one day, and I asked that friend if he knew exactly what happened that led to them breaking up. He looked at me with a concerned stare. "Oh, so you don't know?" Then hesitated a bit on what to tell me. I could tell by looking at his face it was something heavy. After struggling a bit with his thoughts, he said he'd prefer it for me to hear it from PJ's ex-girlfriend. We often frequent the same places, so we're still friendly. After some thought, he ended up saying that the first time they broke up, my cousin was out of town and his ex-girlfriend was browsing through his computer, only to find illegal content involving minors on his files. It caught me completely off guard. I sat there speechless, and ever since, it hasn't left my mind. I never thought someone this close to me, someone I looked up to and grew so fondly of, was allegedly consuming one of the darkest, most vile types of materials to exist in this rotten world. I didn't get to know details or the aftermath of anything else past that, and I'm not sure it would change much. After the breakup, apparently the whole situation died down. PJ and ex-girlfriend went no contact. Understandably so. I also know John knows because I recall one instance where he seemed very distraught. But because we were at a birthday party at the time, he was trying to brush it off. He told me later on we had to have coffee someday to talk, but unfortunately, we hadn't found the right time due to both of our schedules and life circumstances. PJ and his current girlfriend keep texting me occasionally to hang out, but I've been throwing excuses to not meet them ever since I found out. I don't know if PJ's girlfriend is aware of this. They've known each other and been friends for years, so I really don't know. I don't know her that well. So what's going through my mind is, should I cut contact completely? He always looked after me, like a sister, and never showed any signs whatsoever. Quite the opposite. Are people who consume illegal content involving minors inherently evil? Are they capable of change? These are all questions I have no idea of. It'd be easier to say or judge someone online, or when you at least expect this type of behavior from certain types of people. But I never in a million years would have guessed that person would be PJ. I don't know how to react. If I tell this to anyone in real life, word could spread. Other family members could find out. It could very well ruin his life. Am I being a terrible chicken shit of a human being for considering keeping this a secret? Because I can't seem to detach my emotions from the facts, and I don't want to be the one to ruin his life. At the same time, I can't never look at him the same again. And it's painful. Just writing this out took me weeks because it brings me so much anxiety. I had to write it in chunks and take breaks in between. I'm sorry if it's too big of a confession, but if this makes it in a video, I'd appreciate to have your perspective on it. And anyone who had some experience with this, thank you again for everything, Snook. I hope you're taking care of yourself. Much love. And all right, I'm going to try to give my best feedback. I mean, this is a very heavy situation and secret you have to bear. I appreciate you feeling open to tell me about this or tell the channel about this. And hopefully some people in the comments can give you some great advice. But, you know, this is just advice. This is just my kind of take on it. But I think you should really confine in a family member because you shouldn't have to carry this weight alone. You really shouldn't. This is such a shocking and heavy secret that you've just been told. And in no way should you have to carry this yourself. And also, if you do tell someone and it gets out, you shouldn't feel responsible for ruining his life. He did something illegal, and if, let's say, he gets the consequences of his actions, that's just the consequences of what he was doing. You're not responsible for ruining his life. He ruined his own life through viewing that disgusting material. And so what I think you should do is ask your mom, dad, or another family member you really trust and ask their feedback on it. Tell them, because you should not have to carry this weight alone. I mean, this is, I can't imagine finding something out like that, especially someone you trusted so deeply, someone you cared about, someone you loved, and you find out this horrible secret that they've been hiding. And so my advice is just, I really think you should talk with somebody, because you should not carry this alone. This is very heavy, very serious. And yeah, that's just my advice. You don't need to listen to it, but that's what I would do, because I mean, I don't know what I would do. So I just probably talk to someone I trust deeply. And yeah, for everyone watching, if you've ever dealt with anything similar, please comment down below so the OP can read it and hopefully get some good advice. But I appreciate you sharing, and I hope you can, you know, navigate this situation correctly, because this is such a horrible secret that's been laid upon you. And I hope you can figure it out and do what's best, but I'm sure you can. But yeah, like I said, please just talk to someone, and I'm sure they will help you take the right steps forward, because it shouldn't even be your responsibility, but now it's been laid upon you to do something with this information. And so I would really talk to someone. But thank you so much for sharing. I accidentally set my house on fire and lost everything. Hey Snook, so I've been a fan of your channel for a while now, and I'm glad I can actually get this off my chest. And also, I wish to stay anonymous. Thanks. I'm currently 19 male and currently living with my friends because my parents and my brother won't look me in the eyes anymore. So I was 16 years old playing video games when I decided to get drunk and mess around. So I decided to get some drinks, but also some cigarettes as I was a dumb kid with no sense of consequences. After I had my fun and drinks, I decided to go out and have a smoke. But in the place I lived in, the neighborhood knew me and my family, so I couldn't exactly go out and smoke. So I decided to go to the backyard and smoke there. I decided to light it with matches, and instead of blowing it out first, I decided to throw both my lit cigarette and match over my fence, where I didn't notice there were dry leaves. I locked up the house, cleaned up, and hid the evidence. Little did I know that this was the last time I would sleep comfortably. The next morning, I was woken up by my father yelling at me to wake up and get out of the house. The match and the cigarette butt that I threw over the fence climbed up the tree and started lighting the house on fire. Delirious, I started running down the stairs when all I could see is smoke. I cover up my face with my shirt and started running through the smoke and eventually out of the house. Firefighters came minutes later and tried to put the house out, but it was too late. Everything inside has been burned to ashes, and the outside was charred and unrecognizable. I am fortunate enough that both my parents and my brother came out alive with minimal injuries. For the next 2 months, my family and I were bouncing around hostels and apartments. During one of our stays, my father tried contacting the mayor of the town, I don't know what it's called in the US, to determine who actually caused the fire and if we can get compensation. Months and months go by with no clear culprit because the CCTV cameras placed near my house showed no one passing by during that time. Racked with guilt, I decided to confess everything: the smoking, the drinking, and the matches. Everything. Of course, my father got livid and looked like he was going to legitimately kill me. I could tell in his eyes. But eventually, he controlled himself. He then called my mother over and explained it. Both of them talked and shouted at me for hours on end until my father came to the decision to kick me out and disown me at 16. A week later, I was on my way to my aunt's house to stay for the time being. When I arrived, she had the most disgusted face I have ever seen. She looked at me as if I have the worth as the gum stuck to her shoes and swore that she won't ever feed me, and as soon as I turn 18, she'll kick me out of the house. So she did exactly what she promised. For the next 2 years, I was on my own, still studying in the public school with a part-time job at this gas station. And right on cue, the day after I turn 18, I get kicked out. Thankfully, I had a friend in college who let me stay in her place until I get back on my feet. I know it's all my fault, and I won't ever forgive myself for what happened. And I know I can never make it right, as my whole family completely cut contact with me. I apologize if this is really long, but thank you so much for reading this, and I'm glad I can finally let this out of my chest. Keep up the great work, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or evening. I cheated on my loving husband of 13 years. It was amazing. I hate myself for how little I regret it. I've been married to my husband for 13 years. In the past 2 years, he gained a lot of weight, like nearly 100 pounds. Specifically, the past 6 months, he has exploded in weight. He has a medical condition now, which makes it difficult for him to lose it. Even he admits he likely won't ever lose it. So, I cheated on him with a guy I met at a bar. A hot, tanned, muscular guy who was visiting from Cyprus. He is going back to Cyprus in 2 weeks. He texted me today and asked if we wanted to meet up at his apartment, with a bunch of winking faces implying we were going to have intimacy. I hesitated, then said yes. I deleted the texts. I gave him a fake last name. I went over, He had an Adidas tracksuit on, which showed his muscular, hairy chest, and I felt a tiny bit of regret before that. But when I saw his muscles, any regret I had just left me. I barely even hesitated to kiss him. We had intimacy. It was amazing. He made me finish, something I haven't had from my husband in a year. He was well endowed, something my husband didn't have. I think we did it on and off for 2 hours. He was so primal. I went back home to my husband and everything felt normal. I cheated on him, yes, but I felt like nothing had changed. I expected to be torn apart by regret and loathing, but I wasn't. Obviously, I would never, ever tell him, nor would he find out. And I still felt love for my husband. Oddly enough, I almost felt closer to him. I was so frustrated before, and now that I got that release, I felt like a barrier that had frustrated me about him had just dropped. I want to have intimacy with him now more than the past 2 years. I just don't know how to feel about this. I almost hate how easy it was for me, how little it seems to be affecting me. I know that what I did was bad, and it would break his heart if he found out. I hate that this didn't tear me apart with guilt, and instead I feel almost no guilt. I hate that cheating on my husband has somehow made me feel better about both myself and him. This isn't normal. I know that. I also feel like my frustrations have been pushed to the side for now. I don't have any urges to cheat again. I suppose it's just a one-time thing, which I shall keep as a secret until I die. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, why not just divorce? And the OP responds saying, because despite the lack of physicality between us, when he gained weight, I still enjoy the time I spend with him every day more than anything in the world. If there was even a slight whiff of him having the chance to find this out, I would never, ever do it. And then the commenter responds saying, so basically, you just want to have your cake and eat it too? And the OP did not respond. And also the OP's response here was severely downvoted. Another commenter says, you should feel like an awful person. And the OP responds saying, yup, I really should. And that comes off as sarcastic to me. Another user says, look, I'm not trying to judge you, even though if that's the way this sounds, but it's not my place. But for fuck's sakes, woman, you made a vow to your husband, in sickness and in health, and you broke that vow. The reason you don't feel shitty is because in your mind, you have already left this relationship. You may love him as a person, but you no longer love your husband. Sorry, ma'am, but you don't deserve your husband. Another user says, he will find out, and if he has any balls, he will kick you to the curb. Edit. I have more to actually say. Shit like this kills me, dude. 13 years and not one meant a fucking thing to you. Holy shit. Because he disgusts you? Him and his medical condition and his fat? That makes you so sick that you say to hell with 13 years? Holy shit. And people are just like, well, it's only human. God, people are too desensitized. All that time, lol. What a waste. You still like spending time with him, so you don't want a divorce, but it's okay to stab him in the back, right? You might as well tell him to go F himself. People have needs, then you need to cut him loose and be alone. Ask me anything. I killed 2 people. It's been 2 years and 4 months. Every day that goes by is very one foot in front of the other. I'll make a long story short. It was a freak accident, to say the least. A horrific freeway accident. No drinking or drugs, speeding, texting or calling, reckless driving, etc. The highway patrol officer who read through the reports told me, you would have had to be a ninja to avoid it. You are not at fault. Relief, right? Wrong. Survivor's guilt. Sadness for their family. Sad for them. Guilty that I facilitated their transition. Angry that I didn't do things differently. Wanting to commit S-word because I know I don't deserve to live more than them. The list goes on. It's hard to drive because I get flashbacks, panic attacks, shaking, crying, nightmares of that night. They didn't deserve this. Their family doesn't deserve this. They were both beautiful people with potential, love, family, life. And then it's over. And I did it. I've come to understand how different forms of guilt works, and I have become accustomed to the torture I inflict on myself mentally. I deserve at least that. I will never fully forgive myself, and I will never get over it. I think of them often. Sometimes I watch their videos. I include them when I pray and meditate, and I ask them to forgive. I pray for their families to find healing one day. They were heroes. They were beautiful people. And now let's get into the comments and the Ask Me Anything. One commenter says, if it's not too triggering for you, how did the accident happen? Why was it so unavoidable? I was in California at the time, on the freeway at 2:30 a.m. I was cruising along in the fast lane. Traffic was minimal. I was going 65 to 70 miles an hour. The freeway was nearly picture black. As I'm rounding a curve, I see it. There's a car flipped over on its hood, horizontally blocking my lane. In that split second, my headlights shine through the car windows, and I see no one inside. I didn't even have a chance to stop or swerve, and of course, there was a car riding on my right side, so I would have likely hurt or killed them if I jumped over too abruptly. I slam into the vehicle and get out. As soon as I get out, I see two dead bodies laying on the opposite side of the freeway. And for the next couple of minutes, which felt like an eternity, I spent hopping from one side of the center divide to the other, as other cars are slamming into the wreckage on my side. And with no shoulder on the inside, there was nowhere to safely go. I attempted to run towards one of the bodies, and I see what can only be described as blood. There was nothing left to distinguish if that person was male or female, or even human. Long story short, first responders arrive, and I was questioned 4 to 5 times by different people and given a sobriety test, which I passed. They kept asking me if I saw any pedestrians on the freeway, and I said no, because I hadn't. It all happened so fast, in a final destination kind of way, and I sincerely didn't know how they got there. I just assumed that the wreck they had prior to me getting to that point is what ejected them. It took 9 months of investigation, making sure my car wasn't malfunctioning, speed wasn't a factor, recreating the scene, asking witnesses, checking my phone records, etc. And the police finally explained to me what happened. There were 2 cars that collided, maybe 1 minute before me. One flipped, one pulled over to help the guy out of the car. They all stood on the blind side of the car after they got him out, and that's when I came. The police told me I would have had to be a ninja to avoid that, and that the lack of lighting, the blind corner, and the fact that they were standing on the freeway is what went wrong. And alright, hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another Scary Stories video, and today we're getting into some more subscriber submitted stories. I love this series, and you guys seem to love it too, and I'll keep making these videos as long as you guys keep sending emails to the email, and the email's on screen now. Please send in your scary stories. I appreciate it so much. I read every single one, And yeah, thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate every single one of you. You're the best, and please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. And today's stories are so scary. Each one gave me goosebumps. Each one was scary. Each one was frightening. And I'm gonna be honest, you're gonna want to stick around. I appreciate you all, like I said. And without further ado, let's get into some frightening, scary stories. Hi Snook, I hope you're well. My name is Agustina. I know, odd name. I've been following your channel for some time now, and I've really become keen on these stories you have shared with us. That's why I decided to share one with you, which is really odd to me even nowadays. And it's true. This happened 15 years ago. My uncle was building a house in what used to be a remote area in the countryside. Up until this point, he had built something that looked like a small house meant for holding parties. No beds, just a huge table, a kitchen, a bathroom, and a couch all in one space. This house, not so, is made almost entirely of glass. This is important. It will make more sense soon. Almost right next to this place, he was building a much more sizable house. However, he finished what was going to be his room first, in the first floor, while the ground floor was left unfinished for a long time. My mom and I used to sleep in that room in the first floor, while the ground floor was locked with a piece of wood. That's all the safety we could count on. One day, almost a year after my grandma passed away, she used to love this place. One of the reasons why my uncle bought this land and built a house here to begin with. We were sitting outside, my mom and I, in the porch of this unfinished house. Our idea for the evening was to play Scrabble, like any other night, given that we were alone. My uncle was on vacation, my dad was working, and my brother was with our cousins in their house for the summer. We set the table for the game, and on the board, once we were ready, we started taking some keys randomly to start playing. I don't know if the rules are all the same everywhere, but to start playing, we needed to take 7 letters, something we did without looking, chilling while talking with my mom. She never looked at her letters while talking, but was automatically setting them before looking to them, and think of that word to create. My native language is Spanish, so I'll explain what's coming so everyone can understand. Once my mom looked back at her letters, she turned white and suddenly stopped talking. When I asked her what was wrong, she turned her letters on me, and the word ciudado looked back at me. Mind you, this word means danger or beware in Spanish. My mother didn't make this word. She never took a look at her game. We both went silent, unable to stop looking at it. I've already mentioned my grandma before. The truth is that, since she passed away, we've all gone through some unexplainable episodes in this place. It's like she has been around this house since she left. What was happening at that moment felt like yet another of these events. What was she trying to warn us about? We immediately turned vigilant, paying more attention to our surroundings. My uncle's house had no fence, and in front of us there was a river, which was lacking tons of water at that moment, given the lack of rain. Behind that river, there were the mountains. After what felt like a couple of minutes, we heard some steps in front of us, which of course made us jump in our seats. The area before us is quite dark, given that this house had no reflectors or any sort of strong lights for us to see what was happening in the wilderness. My mother yelled, "Who's there?" We heard a male voice from the darkness saying, "Sorry, miss. I didn't want to scare you." And from the trail that goes down to the river, a guy appeared. The guy was dressed like a homeless person, and he had a small bag hanging from his shoulder to his waist. I didn't mention this before, but this area was filled with what we call hippies, people who live in the mountains, in tents or really humble houses, and tend to engage in all kinds of substances. Up until this point, there were not too many stories of them occupying houses or being violent like now, but we all knew they were around. This guy approached us a bit more. As my mother got up to stand in the first line of the porch, he said, "I was just wondering if you could give me some bread. I am really hungry after walking so much." My mother came to the table where we were playing, took a bag with pastries and walked halfway down. So the guy came closer to the light, just to see him better. He approached the tree where my mom hung the bag and said, "Do you perhaps have some water too?" She returned to our table and took an empty bottle to fill it with some tap that was near, without disappearing from sight. The guy then turned to look at me. I was 11 years old. However, being raised in a difficult neighborhood, I wasn't quite scared of people and was rather bold. My uncle had a machete used for cutting branches and any wild plants around, which my mother kept around us and I grabbed as some kind of reflex. Once my mother returned to meet this guy with the water, the guy looked at her and said, "So, you two are alone here?" By just writing this, I still get goosebumps like the ones I got back then. I felt shivers fall through my spine after hearing that. My mother, trying to keep her cool, said, "No, we are not." "Why?" To which he answered, "It just seems so lonely here. And I saw no man around. I just got curious." My mother turned his back on him and said, "Maybe you should mind your own business a bit more," as she walked up the stairs back to the porch. The guy glanced at me once more before going back into the darkness. My mom, now showing how unsettled she felt, told me to hurry back into that little house my uncle used for parties. We locked the main door and blocked the entrance of the side door with a chair. Since we had no car at the time, we were practically on our own. No one was residing in the houses nearby. I was sitting in front of the many glass doors when I saw this guy again, standing on the stairs to the porch, looking through the bushes. I started feeling scared. The phone had no signal, given the lack of antennas in the area. We were pretty much on our own, with this guy who is now openly stalking us. My mother did her best to try and pretend there were other people in the house with us by opening the only window we had and yelling my dad's name. The guy could literally see everything that was going on inside. Remember, it was a house made almost completely by glass. After 20 minutes of trying to call the police unsuccessfully, I saw my mother grab the machete and stand in front of the window. The guy was standing on the porch, looking straight at us. We could finally see his face, which was stoic, but somehow ready to fight if needed. He still had his bag on, and his face looked so dirty, even though the river was calm and could have used it at any time. He was tall, but not too built. 10 minutes later, the guy climbed down the stairs again to disappear from our sight, and we tried to have some kind of dinner without being able to unglue our eyes from the glass and looking everywhere around to see if this man was somewhere else near us. It felt like being at a zoo, where we were there for someone's entertainment. Once we thought we were sure this guy wasn't around, we left this little house and went to the bigger one, practically ran to the first floor, to lock ourselves there. In this room, we actually managed to get some signal to call the police. However, they told us that only one unit was available for the town, which was busy patrolling the mountains. My mother decided to turn off all the lights, machete in hand, while we tried to hear any minor noise that could show to us we were not alone. Silence. There was silence for an hour or so. My mom was checking the door every now and then. Yes, this door also was completely made of glass, to see if anything appeared on the stairs that led to my uncle's bedroom. Around 2 a.m., my mom got up to check once again, and stopped in her tracks, staring at the stairs. She got so close to the glass while holding the machete that I got scared for a second. I suppose her instinct kicked in, more intensively than any other moment of the night. I tried to get to the door myself, but my mother yelled like I never heard before. Nonetheless, I moved closer to her once again and looked through the glass. The guy was standing on those stairs, smiling. I can't describe how frightened I was. My mother pushed me away and threw her cell phone at me. I called the police once again, but my mother started yelling, interrupting the operator. The operator got so concerned she told us she would summon the car again to the town, but that could take some time, given that they would be coming down the mountains. From that moment on, my mother continued yelling all kinds of things to this guy, completely out of herself. I saw her go quiet before she breathed out, "He's not here anymore," before the police arrived. The guy came to her door once again and tried opening the door. He was trying to pick up something out of his bag, but the sound of the police interrupted him. He ran out of the house, while the police opened the front door to the yard and heard my mother as she opened the window from the bedroom. "The guy was up here now. Get him!" The officers searched the area and told us not to leave the room under any circumstances. After a certain time, one of them came back and just yelled, "We found him, miss. We'll be back soon." I wouldn't be able to know how long, but we heard their car leaving, just like that. A couple of hours later, these same officers returned to the house and asked us to come down. We did so, and once we did, we saw both of them looking concerned. The older officer told us they managed to find the guy, hiding near the river between some rocks and bushes. After checking him, they saw the guy was completely high, and inside his bag, he was carrying a gun. They also told us they'd been looking for this guy, since he had inappropriately touched many people who visited the river in the past days. I don't know what this guy's intentions were, but one thing was clear. It wasn't anything good. I still burn my head thinking about that game of Scrabble and how it warned us of what was coming. Needless to say, my mother and I never stayed alone there ever again. I will never forget that face and his nasty smile. We should rarely be afraid of the dead. Be afraid of the living. Thank you for your time, Snook, and for all your work. Hi Snook, I just found your channel, and I love the viewer submission stories. I often listen to them while doing things around the house or on long car rides. I've got numerous stories, but this one I think is the scariest. So this would have been in the early 2000s. My family and I used to live in Illinois, and would often go camping when we were kids. We'd mostly stay at White Pine State Park in Mount Morris, Illinois. At the time, my sister would have been around 5, and I would have been around 7 or 8. We had pulled into the entry of the campgrounds and saw that the normally packed on the weekend campsites were almost nearly empty. My family shrugged it off as lucky and went about setting up our site. Now for context, our site was located across the way from a curve in the road that went through the campground. We set up and go about the usual camping activities, playing games, catching lightning bugs at dusk, roasting marshmallows, etc. Eventually, it came time for bed. So our tent we had 3 compartments, rooms, something. So it had a large main section and 2 small tunnels in either side. One side we kept food and clothes in, and the other side is where my sister and I slept. We all got tucked in for the night, and given our light sources, my parents used to give us these super bright military-grade glow sticks when we would camp, bright enough to see and not get spooked, but dim enough to not disturb sleep. We all lay down and fell asleep when really late at night, like 2 a.m., according to my mom. She woke up with just an odd feeling. She looks over to check on my sister and I, and sees my sister sitting up. She questioned her to see if everything was okay, but my mom said that my sister turned her head to look at her, and with all the calmness in the world whispered, "The devil is behind you." My mom, rightfully panicked, thought maybe my sister was half asleep and dreaming or was seeing my dad, but my dad was still asleep. My mom said she got this overwhelming feeling we needed to leave, and woke my dad and I up, loaded us in the car, and drove home that night, leaving all of our stuff behind till morning. The next morning, we returned to the campground, and the park ranger asked if we were the ones staying in number whichever it was. My parents said yes, and the ranger said something along the lines of, "Oh, the ranger who was here last night said you left in a hurry. Was everything okay?" My parents relayed what happened, and from what they said, the ranger looked a little spooked. The ranger then told my parents that about 2 weeks prior in the site across from ours, on the curve, a man was run over while sleeping in his tent by a drunk driver who missed the curve and was killed on site. That's why the campground was empty. We never stayed there again after that, and my sister has no memory of waking up or saying that to my mom. Coincidence? Maybe. Creepy? Yes. If this doesn't make it to a video, I still appreciate you reading. I could fill a book with all the spooky and creepy things I've experienced. If you have any questions or want to hear more, you're welcome to reach out. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks for reading. Sam. And thank you so much, Sam, for sending in the story. I had goosebumps when during this entire story. I did not expect it to take that turn. I just don't know what I even thought. That was so scary, so disturbing, so creepy. It was so unpredictable. You know, I read so many stories now. I've read hundreds of stories, and this one just took a turn I was not seeing at all. It just felt so authentic, so scary. Your little sister saying that creeped me out enough. But then the guy who died, like driving there, and he died right there, ran someone over, like goosebumps. That was a good story. Thank you so much. If you have any other stories, please send them to the email, and please say Sam sent them. I really appreciate it. Guys and everyone watching, comment down below if you thought it was as scary as I did. But yeah, that creeped me the hell out and gave me crazy goosebumps. Yeah, that was a creepy story. Luckily, you guys are all right, but that's definitely unsettling. Hello, Snook. Before I start, I'd like to say that I enjoy your content, mainly the skinwalker and cryptid related stories, as they are pretty entertaining. Fortunately for me, this story doesn't contain any creatures of the sort, as anything like that would be terrifying to run into for real. Still though, what I want to share might be appealing to some, even if it isn't inherently over the top scary. I also apologize if it is a little long. Anyways, let's begin. It is 2009 in Cleveland, Ohio. I was 4 years old and living with my parents and sister in a big, beautiful blue house, 2 stories tall, standing amongst a bunch of other similar houses in a typical suburban neighborhood. It was a safe area, full of kids and kind people. There was even a park nearby that me and my sister would go to often. At the time, there wasn't much that could scare me or cause trauma, but that did not stop me from experiencing nightmares on a regular basis after my parents put me to bed. Nowadays, I can chalk most of it up to just being usual night terrors that children tend to experience when they don't have a full grasp on the world yet, as everything unknown can seem scary when you're very young. Despite that, there was one nightmare I had that was so bizarre. I cannot simply call it a night terror that an innocent kid's mind can just come up with. Unlike other nightmares, which I have forgotten over time, I can still remember this one clearly to this day. It started with me alone at the park in my neighborhood. I was obviously not aware that I was dreaming. However, I knew immediately that something was wrong because the sky around me was blood red. Not the kind of red you can see in a sunrise or sunset that mix with different colors to create a pretty display. No, it was a solid red. The sky was also filled with dark storm clouds, although there wasn't any rain or wind. Of course, this was terrifying to me. Even a 4-year-old knows that the sky really only comes in blue and black most of the time. But what came next was even worse. As I scanned the sky, I saw something peeking out through a break in the clouds. As the clouds moved away, it came into full view. It was the sun, much larger than it usually was and pitch black in color, almost like a full solar eclipse but missing the orange outline. Once I saw it, I was quickly filled with dread. Like I knew something was very twisted and evil about it in the sky that surrounded it. I looked around for anyone that could help, but there was no one. Panicking, I began to run, hoping to get back to the comfort of my house. As I ran, it felt almost like the sun was watching me, like it wanted to hurt me. As I was halfway to my house with tears streaming down my face, a car suddenly pulled up to me. It was my grandma. Someone who I loved dearly because of her kindness and carefree nature. But in this dream, she was acting serious because of the current situation, strikingly different from how I usually saw her. She urged me to get into the car, and I took no time doing so, relieved to be with her. We made our way back to my house, and after being reunited with my family, I barreled my way up to me and my sister's room on the second floor. Hiding away up there only quelled my fears a bit, as I knew the sun was still out there. Before I woke up, the last thing I remember doing was staring out the window, looking at that sun in fear, terrified of what was to come. Looking back, I can say with certainty that 4-year-old me was not aware of the existence of solar eclipses or their portrayal in religious/spiritual media. I'm not really religious, only believing in God and not paying much mind to biblical events, but maybe that was the dream was about. I've only really told my close friends and family about it, and one of my friends did mention that it sounded like something out of the Berserk manga series. Another thing to mention is, my mother claims that I've woken her up multiple times about the same black sun dream, even though I do not recall experiencing it more than once. I also stopped having night terrors sometime afterwards. But the weirdness did not stop there, as both my parents reported seeing me sleepwalking when I was younger, which I also eventually stopped doing. Anyways, I think that's all I have to say about it. Snook, if you see this, thank you for reading. Once again, I apologize if it was a bit too long of a story. Alex. Just want to say, I love your videos, and they have prompted me to send this story. I love having your videos on as background noise and just listening to them on their own sometimes, as your narration is so calming, yet spooky at the same time. This is mainly based around sleep paralysis, which probably could have just made up the entire thing, but in the moment, it felt so scary and real. Also, if you read this, sorry, it's so long. No worries. This happened a few years ago. One day, I was out shopping at a charity/antique shop, which to me felt difficult to breathe in, but others said they could breathe in just fine. After a while of looking around, I found myself in the taxidermy section and saw a doll tucked away in the corner, just hidden away from sight, instead of with the other dolls around 5 feet away. For some reason, I felt compelled to this doll and bought it. I brought it home that night and nothing was wrong. I cleaned her up and then placed her next to my bed. That night, I woke up in sleep paralysis, which I had like once or twice before I bought this doll. When I looked over, I see this old lady shushing a crying child on the other bed in my room. And for whatever reason, the doll seemed to be looking at me. I don't know if this was just because of the sleep paralysis or if I had moved it in my sleep. Safe to say, I quickly shut my eyes and fell back asleep since I'm not about to stay awake and find out what happens next. The next day, I had to go back to my mother's and brought the doll with me. I set it up on a shelf across my room and made sure it wasn't facing directly at me. I don't know why, but I could never seem to get rid of this feeling that something was always looking at me. I kept repeatedly having sleep paralysis after that. Nothing too special, just not being able to move and being surrounded by darkness. However, about a week after, I had the worst sleep paralysis I've had yet. When I woke up, I didn't realize I was in sleep paralysis, so I got up and walked to the door, only for my hand to phase through the handle. When I grabbed it, I looked back over to my bed and see myself sleeping on it before seemingly teleporting back to my bed. I do the same thing again, still having this weird out-of-body experience, but instead poke my head outside the door, only to be met with pure darkness and the sense of dread. I quickly moved back into my room, and when I turn around, I swear I could see the doll staring at my body in bed again. However, now there was also this large black mass of a creature made of arms and legs, quickly crawling to my body. But I darted back and somehow woke up before it got to me. I moved out of that room for a while because it had gotten flooded, which it had never done before I got the doll. Now I'm back in the room and I'm feeling the same sense of dread and constantly feel like I'm being watched, but every time I think about getting rid of the doll, I just get the feeling that if I do, something terrible will happen. So now, I don't know what to do. Hello Snook, I just want to say that I love your videos. You narrate them so well and I hope you reach your goal of subscribers. Anyways, into my story. This took place a while when I was around 5 or 6, so me and my little brother, who I think was 3 at the time, were just messing around in the basement. At the time, we had a fairly large bouncy house. It's okay to be jealous. So we were on the bouncy house when my brother had to go upstairs to do something. I said something like, okay, go then. For some reason, the light was flickering, which was kind of creepy, not gonna lie. I was on the bouncy house when I heard something. It kind of sounded like someone was trying to talk to me. So I turned off the bouncy house and heard, clear as day, my dad say, Anna, come up here. So I thought, what the heck, why not? And went up the stairs of the basement. To my absolute horror, my dad was not there. I yelled for him profusely, only to be met with him in his bedroom. I asked how he got up there so fast. He said that he didn't know what I was talking about, and he had been in his bedroom the whole time. I still don't know who or what was trying to call me upstairs. Anyways, thanks for reading. Hope this gets put in a video. Good morning / afternoon or night Snook for whenever you see this. Even though I just started watching your videos like literally a few hours ago, I really like your videos and I want to share 3 stories of mine because I don't really have anyone to share them except anyone who's already heard them. I just want to start off and say, every house I've lived in so far has been haunted. When I was younger, we lived in a 2-story house where the landlord practiced voodoo on their land. The second house we moved into, when I started grade 2, also had its fair share of shadows and strange happenings. I would always see a tall man wearing a top hat walking around the yard, and I would often hear voices calling my name, voices of my family members, even when I was home alone, or they were in another room, which made me really paranoid as a kid. The first and most recent story happened when I was 13 to 14 years old. Though I'm 17 now, turning 18 this December, I still remember these stories so vividly because of how unnerving and unexplainable they are. Around April or May of 2020 to 2022, I can't remember the exact date, my mom, my two sisters, and I moved into a new apartment. We started bringing our things in during April and finally settled in by the end of April and beginning of May. Anyways, we moved into this brand new apartment located in one of the busier parts of town where more locals live than tourists. This particular incident happened the very first night we slept there after moving everything in and cleaning up. I was in my mother's room with her, just lying next to her scrolling on my phone. Her bed faced the door in her closet. My older sister walked out of our shared room and went into the kitchen. Right after she went into the kitchen, a short, light-skinned woman with a decrepit, almost blurry, burnt face peeked her head into my mother's room. She had uneven, chopped black hair falling over her shoulders and face, and she wore this eerie smile before dipping back out and disappearing. I know I wasn't hallucinating because immediately after, my mother asked me if I saw the lady. I said yes. I also knew it was my sister playing a prank on us because my sister was dark-skinned, slightly taller, and had short, thick 4B/4C hair, completely different from the woman I saw. My mother caught me off guard when she told me to check it out and to ask my sister if it was her. I looked at her like she was crazy and asked why she was sacrificing me to whatever that lady was. She kissed her teeth and complained about me being scared. In retrospect, anyone would be scared to investigate that, but alas, I got up and went into the kitchen to ask my sister if she peeked into the room. She looked at me confused and said, no. I felt even more scared and confused because if it wasn't her, then who was it? I reluctantly gathered enough courage to check the bathroom, which was directly next to my mother's room, but no one was there. I also want to mention that the entrance to the manhole was in the bathroom, and you couldn't enter the bathroom without walking directly underneath it. That's part of the reason why I was so hesitant to go in. I still don't know who that woman was, and I haven't saw her since that day. The house had its moments of being creepy, and I hate being in the house alone because I always feel like someone is watching me. The second story happened around September to October 2016, after Hurricane Matthew swept through the Bahamas when I was around 8 or 9. I lived in the rural area of Nassau, New Providence, aka Coral Harbor, and Adelaide, which is close to the airport and a resort hotel named Albany. This is the second house I mentioned earlier, where I constantly saw shadows and the voices. The area I lived only had houses on the left-hand side. On the right was just a pine forest and bush, and further in was a shooting range. At least I think there was shooting range because I would constantly hear gunshots in the pines forest. My power was off because Hurricane Matthew knocked down one of the power lines, and it was late in the night, so my mother lit candles around the house for light. My siblings and I were all in her room since we all didn't like the dark. I was laying by her door next to my oldest sisters. Keep in mind, my mother's door was at the end of the hallway, so looking out her door, you can immediately see the fridge and a bit of the island counter. I was staring at the counter and fridge, seemingly stuck in a trance because even my sister, who's sitting in front of me, had disappeared from my line of sight, if she wasn't even there. I kept staring when suddenly a figure of a man in rough cut-up old-fashioned clothing with hair like the 1800s. He was green and see-through for some reason, and his hair was messy and chopped up, and his skin looked like he was decomposing, and even his leg only have mostly bone, flesh, and a bit of skin. But the scary part wasn't the man. It was the fact he was reaching for the knife on the counter that was directly next to a candle. I was absolutely scared shitless and shot up scared out of my mind, seemingly out of sleep paralysis trance, and sister, who was actually still sitting in front of me, asked me what was wrong. I don't remember answering her, but I waited till the morning, or I think a few days later, to tell my mom what I saw. The crazier part was my sister, not the one in front of me, the one from previous story, saw the exact same thing as me and described it word for word. Then one night, almost months after the incident, I had a nightmare of the same scene. When I was in sleep paralysis, it happened again, but this time the man spoke. This time he had the knife in his hand and threatened to kill my family. I woke up in tears and silently cried myself back to sleep and told my mom about the dream in the morning. The third story takes place in the same house as the second one. This one is much shorter than the other two. I was a bit older at the time, probably 10 to 11 years old. I don't remember the exact date or year, I just remember the details. It was the afternoon, and I was in the kitchen washing my dishes and I think making noodles when I looked out the window. The kitchen window looks out the bit of a front lawn, the cesspit, our garage, and the road. I was looking at the garage and the road when this white flowing figure appeared and was walking in the road from the garbage. It wasn't a garbage bag, or a plastic bag because it was see-through and walked too much like a human. I stared at it, in confusion, in shock, as it just walked down the road before disappearing. To this day, I still don't know what that was I saw, and quite frankly, I don't really want to find out. I have many more supernatural stories of shadow figures and voices, but the gift or curse I had of seeing them seemed to just disappear as I got older. Maybe because I became a bit skeptic as I got older, but I still got feelings of being watched when I'm home alone, and so I still hear the voices but rarely. It kind of makes me sad though, knowing I can't get that thrill of seeing the shadow people anymore. I encountered a monster in my backyard when I was 11. Hello Snook, I've been watching your videos every night for months as I go to sleep as background noise. I've heard so many spooky true stories and decided it was finally time to send an experience of my own. The main reason I've decided to write this now is just recently I spoke to my friend who had witnessed it as well, and they confirmed that I'm not crazy. Not that I thought I was, but it was nice being reassured. Also, I know I said my backyard, but this incident occurred at my grandma's, though I practically lived there at the time. A fire had happened in the woods of my grandma's neighbor's backyard. For some reason, the fire trucks drove through the woods, leaving a trail in the woods of her backyard. I wasn't there when it happened though, so I don't know for sure. Anyways, a couple weeks later, myself and my cousin, I'll call her Ellis, were walking down an already made trail, when we discovered the one the fire truck made. Obviously, a new trail meant more exploring without the awful twigs and sticks getting stuck and the possibility of spraining our ankles. Now, the trail was made in a big U shape, so it had 2 entrances and exits. Myself and her explored the trail, finding some clothes, trash, and an entire carpet. Further on, we saw a huge weeping widow, secluded from everything else. This will be important later. Now, if you don't know what a weeping widow is, it's a tree slanted horizontally as if it's about to fall over. It's known for falling on women's husbands, thus the name Weeping Widow. Anyways, for a couple days we kept playing around together until one day we decided to go on the trail through the separate entrances for the extra thrill of being alone for half the walk. We did get that thrill. I believe I went in before her because she went to go to the bathroom or get water before entering. The walk is nice and scenic. I enjoyed walking through alone because it made me feel brave and I got the peace and quiet of being by myself. I like being by myself, but that's when I heard twigs snapping to my far right. Obviously, I immediately brushed it off as a squirrel or maybe even a cat since we had lots of them. That was quickly debunked when I heard the snapping of twigs was rapid and getting louder and louder very quickly. I was a bit spooked, but I'm not one to assume very quickly. I'm known for being very stoic and can't be rattled easily. I was desensitized to the idea of horror because I watched it so much growing up. The noise stopped, so I called myself a coward for even stopping and giving it the time of day. I continued my walk, and a couple minutes later, when I saw something in the corner of my eye. It was this figure, a really big figure. I couldn't decide whether it was more animal or human-like, but that didn't really matter because despite that, it was big. It was behind a tree and scurried off when I looked at it. I still didn't overthink it. My mind plays tricks on me sometimes, so I just assumed it was that. Although at this point, I was getting a little paranoid and sped up my pace hoping I would pass by Ellis soon and continue the rest of the trail with her. To no avail. I was finally approaching the Weeping Widow when that's when I heard it again. The twig snapping, except this time it was much louder. It only took me maybe 3 seconds to realize that thing was only 20 feet away, if not less, and it was getting close. I ran to the Weeping Widow tree because it was the only tree big enough to possibly hide me, even though it was still an awful hiding spot. As I ran towards the tree, I finally saw it. It was made of skin, just skin. It was patchy and dirty. It was ugly. Its shoulder blades were above its head. It had kind of a humpback. Its arms were long enough to touch the ground, and they were kind of triangular, like a bat's wing, or better yet, a pterodactyl wing. It was as big as a bear, and it had animal-like hind legs, and it used its arms mostly to run, like a gorilla. But this gorilla was on steroids and just speedballed a 5-hour energy, Red Bull, and washed it down with Adderall. It was fast. I hid behind the tree and stayed as quiet as I could. I peeked over and saw it sprint past and back into the dense woods. Now, I can't run. I have a habit of buckling my legs. It's happened 4 times, and 2 times injuring them badly. I'm asthmatic and anemic, When I tell you I ran for my life is an understatement. I wasn't scared of any hole I may step in. Hell, I'm pretty sure I forgot to breathe too, but that didn't even matter. Finally, I saw Ellis and ran up to her explaining we had to leave. I believe she had heard something, but don't see anything or think anything of it. The pure shock of seeing me spring knowing my conditions and seeing me actually frightened her scared her enough to immediately listen to me, and we ran out of there fast. I don't think we've ever been back on that trail again. Now, it's too outgrown to go back on it, even if we wanted to, but I still wonder what it was exactly that I saw that night. Mothman? A skinwalker? Whatever it was, I hope I never have a dangerous encounter with it again. Anyways, sorry if this story was a bit shorter or not as frightening as the others, but it was my pleasure to write this anyways, and I hope you at least enjoyed reading it. Hey there, Snook. Call me Winnie. Before I start, I just wanted to say how much your videos mean to me between helping me fall asleep and keeping me focused during the workday. I love watching your videos, and please keep doing what you're doing. Even if this story doesn't get featured in one of your videos, I thought it'd be nice to get this off my chest anyway. Man on the subway. I live smack in the middle of New York City. Yep, the Big Apple. A lot of creepy crap goes down around here due to such a high volume of people in a small area and the prevalence of drug use over the past few decades. However, some things just happen to stick out and make you wonder what you might have just seen. My story takes place on the New York subway heading into Manhattan. It was the middle of the day, broad daylight, and I was on my way to Manhattan for a date. I was going to meet a guy I had started seeing pretty recently, and I was really excited. I was a bit nervous to be on the subways alone since crime in my area had spiked pretty drastically at the time, so I brought a friend along with me just for the train ride. We took the bus to the subway, and all was fine for about 12 stops. Then we had to transfer from our line to the Manhattan bound. The second we stepped off the train, the atmosphere shifted. Not in a particularly scary way, more like the world went from completely normal to a sort of dimmer and quieter tone. It was sort of like we had stepped into a Tim Burton movie where everything was just sort of bluish and grayed over, and regular public chatter ceased the second the train doors closed behind us. Anyway, the next train arrived and we sort of brushed off whatever energy we had started to pick up on, and we decided to stand in the middle of a random car since there weren't any seats. After each stop, everyone got off but me, my friend, and a man. I didn't want to stare, but dude gave me the creeps. The man was completely bald and wearing all black, complete with a black trench coat and briefcase. He looked to be at least 6'5". His presence was very imposing, but he appeared emaciated. He was so skinny, his cheeks were hollow, his eyes dark, and his gangly fingers had long, razor-sharp nails. I know I said I wouldn't stare, but I have to admit, I did. I felt like I needed to keep eyes on this guy, or he'd get up and try something. I'm positive he saw me staring from the corner of his eyes, but not once did he look at me, or acknowledge it. Now, most New Yorkers know the eyes ahead rule, but I was basically assaulting the guy with my eyes, and no reaction. About 2 more stops, and the man suddenly begins to move, after sitting incomprehensibly still the entire ride. He looked down and pulled a penny from his pocket. His movements were so slow and deliberate that I became even more nervous, waiting to see what he would do next. He examined the penny for a few seconds, then placed it very meticulously on the seat next to him, turning and adjusting it to make sure it was placed to his liking. He then pulled a small sachet from the same pocket and gripped his briefcase. 1 stop left. As our train was coming to a stop in Manhattan, I kid you not, this guy looks up at me and shoots me the widest and most eerie grin I had ever seen, as if to say, I know you've been watching. I'm scared shitless at this point, so I grip my friend and run out of the car looking for my date. Sweating, I ask her, dude, what the hell was that? What was that, Winnie? She said. Now I'm getting agitated. I sputtered out, the guy with the penny and the smiling, the big, tall, scary, bald guy? At this point, my friend is looking at me like I'm crazy and says, Win? What guy? We were alone the last 5 stops. My heart sank. Mind you, we were standing, holding onto a pole not even 4 feet from this guy the entire ride. I look back into the window of our car, and the penny is still there, so I know I'm not dreaming. I looked at my date, who walked up excited to go out, and I asked him if he saw anyone else get out of the car after we did. He said we were the only ones to come out of the car. I swear to you, this guy left the car right after us and after placing his special penny, but nobody saw him, but me. I never quite shook the feeling of being watched after witnessing that, but my date went well, and we've been together for almost half a year now. That friend still swears up and down that I must have dreamt something up that day, but I know what I saw. I know this story may not be as climactic as many of you had hoped, but I seriously had no explanation for this encounter. Snook, if you or any viewers might have some idea of what happened, please feel free to share. And to that guy on the subway who left a payment at a crossroads, let's not meet. And to be honest, I have no idea. That's creepy as hell, though. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting, this guy to stand up, say something to you, do something to you, but for it to be, all in your head almost, or a ghost or spirit of some sort, that's really, really weird and interesting. I have no clue what you experienced that day. The penny's interesting, how it was still there. I have no clue. Everyone watching, if you guys have any ideas, but I don't. That's super scary, but luckily, you got out unscathed and you're doing all right. That's great, but super creepy. Thank you, and on to the next one. Hey Snook, thank you for taking the time to read this. I love listening to you when I'm playing Minecraft or writing. Keep it up, and I hope you're doing well. This is a true story about me and my brothers growing up when we would go into the woods when we were younger. This story happened when I was roughly 14 or 15 years old. My brothers, E, 12 years old, and N, 10 years old, and I, along with a friend, T, would go up into the woods and explore whenever our parents were working. We lived in a group of project apartments sandwiched between a stretching highway and a small mountain ridge. The apartment that my family lived in was rather small, especially with my rowdy brothers and I, and our mother would make us stay outside for most of the day, otherwise the house would become a complete train wreck. So, exploring the mountains behind our apartment was the natural choice. It was what we did typically during our weekends till the streetlights came on, or Mama called us home. We went up to the woods so often that Mama eventually caved and bought us a very nice set of walkie-talkies to communicate with because we would often explore outside of yelling distance. Throughout the years, my brothers and I would find things in these woods, ranging from homeless tents, hidden katanas, to the one time we found a dead dog with a missing head. Usually, we'd spend the day fixing and expanding upon our fort, but on this day, we strayed from the usual paths we would take and decided to explore a bit. E and T would be in front of the group whenever we went exploring, with N and I trailing not far behind them. After walking forward 20 to 30 minutes, we ended up in an area I hadn't seen before. It was a clearing of sorts full of kudzu. It is a super invasive in my region, so finding a large pocket wasn't unusual to us. Stepping into the clearing made the hairs on my neck stick up, and I started to notice that the forest was much quieter than normal. We made our way across the clearing. As we stepped into the tree line, things went from quiet to almost pure silence. Marching through the underbrush, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye, just over the edge of a small cliff. There was a head peeking over a fallen log, looking down at us, watching, and they were completely unaware. They hadn't seen it because they were looking straight ahead. They kept moving towards the cliff when I stopped dead in my tracks. It was like my feet were glued to the ground, and my eyes went wide as I saw it stand up from behind the log and stare right back at me. Panic ran through my body as I screamed, "There's somebody up there!" The boys looked back at me in confusion before looking up to the top of the cliff. The person, or whatever the hell it was gone. "There's no one up there," he spoke. I started to panic even more because I knew what I saw there was something looking down at us. "E, I'm not kidding. There was something up there watching us," I shouted. I think him seeing how serious I had put him on edge. T and N both looked at me skeptically. "I'm telling you what I saw, something." I don't remember what else I said, but eventually T suggested that I stay at the bottom while they go take a look. I watched as they scaled the hill. They made it to the log that I saw hiding behind. Everything in me that I shouldn't be in there. I was unwelcome here. I don't know what it was, but I swear right when they told me nothing was up there, I heard a voice. The voice was quiet, but close. So close that it was almost a couple inches from my ear. "Run," the voice whispered. I screamed loud as I possibly could, that we needed to leave, that I heard something. They ran down the side of the hill towards me, and as soon as they were close enough, I bolted. I ran as fast as I could with the boys hot on my tail. They shouted after wanting an explanation, but I just kept running. I didn't stop till we were almost back at the fort, and Mama's voice rang from the walkie-talkie. She was calling us in for dinner. Later that night, I tried to convince them what I had seen, but they didn't believe in that sort of thing, and were convinced that I was just seeing things. I've been back to that clearing, but I didn't get the same uneasiness that I felt before. Other weird things have happened since then, but I'm sure they are unrelated. I'm now 24, and we've since moved from those apartments to the middle of BFE, Tennessee. Again, thanks for reading, and I'll try to submit some more other scary shit that's happened to me. Hello Snook, I hope you're having a great day. I love listening to your channel while I work or do my paintings. Congratulations on the 500,000 subscribers. Keep it up. Stay awesome. The story I'm about to share might not fall into the fist-clenching scary horror type, but I assure you, this event pumped my adrenaline to the roof when it happened. So, I'll do my best to paint you the full picture, and let you decide. It was early spring 2016, and I was on my way home from work. The route I took was pretty much a daily thing, and it would take around 15 minutes of walking from the bus stop. At the time, I worked in a call center, so I had lots of night shifts as well. This was one of them. The daily routine kind of went like this. Routine and boring stuff, work and commute, getting through all the stress, eager to get back home and spend some time on my hobbies before I go to sleep. Rinse and repeat. So like any other day, I exited my bus. The driver closed the doors and began writing something in his logbook. I guess it was the end of his shift for him as well. It was well past midnight, so there was absolutely no one around. Sure, there was an occasional car driving by, but this is a quiet suburb, and there's almost nothing happening at such late hours. So it's normal and even expected for nobody to be around. There were 2 local dogs sleeping in their favorite spot, beside a fast food stand at the bus stop. I crossed the street. I started walking the sidewalk towards my neighborhood. The street was very well lit. The early spring air was soothing and refreshing, and even though I was mentally drained from work, I loved these late night walks, especially during my favorite time of year. Those who work in call centers will truly understand how much a person can appreciate absolute silence and absence of people or crowds and all the noise that comes with that. So, as I was enjoying and appreciating the silence and peace of the night, absorbing the gentle waves of trees in the wind, I caught a quick glimpse of 2 reflective dots, some 50 meters down the road. Before I could even process what I was looking at, this shadow, began sprinting towards me. And I mean full gallop, straight line directly towards me. It took me a second to realize it was a dog that was approaching me, and I was frozen in my place. My mind racing, what should I do? Well, the dog was closing the distance at full speed. There's nowhere to run. To my left side was a tall fence, and across the street was an open field. Empty road and a few small buildings, business buildings, locked up and closed. There were no large stones I could pick up and throw, no people to ask for help, no cars passing by. Nothing and nobody, except me and the dog. So, in the last brief moment I had, I reached quickly in my handbag and grabbed my keys, clenched them in a fist, preparing myself to stab him if I got jumped or bitten. I never had trouble with dogs. I love dogs. I was never attacked or felt threatened by any dog except at this moment. I took a deep breath right before I thought he would jump me, and maybe sure, I held onto those keys as firmly as I could, my other hand raised slightly to protect my neck or face if it came to that. And so suddenly, there he was. Now, you need to understand just how hopeless this situation looked like. This dog was no ordinary dog. He was huge. I am average height for a girl, about 165 centimeters or 5'4" feet, and he was well above my waistline, one of the largest dogs I've ever seen. What chance did I even ever have here? He could carry me with his teeth if he wanted to. His coat was black as the abyss itself, and the only sounds now were his claws in the asphalt, his heavy breathing, and my racing heartbeats. And then, he came right up to me, stood right there beside me. He started a deep, low growl, and then began the barking. Bone-chilling, hellhound level, nightmare fuel, monster dog barking. However, I was still intact. Stunned and overcome with fear, yes, but I was not attacked. The dog had his eyes fixated on something behind me. I turned my head slowly to look, but there was nothing there. I followed his gaze to where he was looking, and I couldn't see anything. The other 2 dogs at the bus station were still within my line of sight. They were now on their feet and looking in our direction, not engaging in the barking, just standing there, observing. If there was a person this dog spotted who ran away, I would definitely hear footsteps or running because it was just that quiet. No living soul was around us. No one approaching. No one running away. Nothing. And yet this dog was barking with such determination, I could feel it resonate within my own body, as it echoed through the dead silent night. I stood there, with this giant black dog for I don't know how long, 30 seconds, a minute, longer. The entire time I scanned every inch of the street trying to catch whatever it was that this dog was barking at. If it was the two dogs he didn't like, wouldn't he be looking their way? But they weren't even doing anything. They were peacefully sleeping before this all started. And he wasn't focused on them at all. Then he went silent too. As the last echo dispersed into the night, he slowly turned his head towards me and looked straight into my eyes. This made me snap back into reality. And as my stun lock was fading away, I had a single thought in my mind. I just wanted to get back home. So I resumed walking. The dog immediately followed. And no, this wasn't my first time ever being followed by a dog, but it never happened like this. Usually, dogs approach you with wagging tails. They try to get your attention, give you those pleading looks in hopes for food. They lick your hand and follow you. But they also do their own thing. They run around, sniff the ground, mark their territory. They let you advance in front of them a little. And then they catch up with you again. You know, classic dog behavior. Well, not this one. The entire time he matched my steps, walked right beside me. His body literally pressed against my leg. I never attempted to move away. I didn't speed up. I didn't try to push him away. I just accepted it. I concentrated on my breathing, trying to chase away the fear I felt. I did not want this dog to smell it on me or give him any reason to feel threatened or aggravated. On occasion, I've only spoken to him in the most gentle, quiet voice. Good boy. Thank you. Good boy. He never reacted to my voice, never looked at me, didn't waggle his tail, just walked beside me like my own shadow. 2 or 3 times he briefly looked back, but no more barking, no reactions. He simply followed. It seemed like an eternity, but I finally reached my building, and at the bottom of the stairs he stopped to follow. I entered my building and looked back through the glass doors. He looked me straight in the eyes. We stood like that, in place for a few seconds, and once again I gently said, "Thank you," before I turned around and finally went home. I didn't turn back to look anymore, but I just knew that he stood there, watching me the entire time for as long as I was within his first line of sight. When I got home, I immediately went to my window to see if he was still there. I was about to bring down some food to him, for hopes of friendship if our paths ever cross again, but he was gone. I never saw this dog before that night, and I never saw him again either. And like I said, I frequented this route almost daily. This was the only interaction I ever had with this absolute black beast of a dog. When my thoughts calmed down, I realized I was being protected from whatever he saw that night. I will never know what it was because I swear there was nothing there, but he knew something, didn't he? Whatever it was, I will always remember that night and be grateful, as I'm sure my night could have taken a much darker turn if he wasn't there to be at my side. Thank you again, good boy. I hope you had a good life. And thank you all for listening. Be safe, always. Anna. Mirror on the wall. This story is 100% true. Feel free to comment. Let's begin. From a very young age, I was always a bit strange, a bit peculiar. I was an extremely sick child. I almost died twice due to pneumonia and was diagnosed as a chronic asthmatic. My parents thought I wouldn't make it, but for whatever reason, I survived. I honestly don't know why I survived. I think about it often. Why did I make it when others didn't? It eats me up at times. Anyway, I have this theory. My soul was between both worlds, the living and the spiritual. When I fully came back to the living, something came back with me. I've always had a weird view of the world around me, seeing things others couldn't. I still do to this day, and I'm 31 years old. The first incident I can recall happened when I was around 5 years old. My parents and I were visiting my grandma at the time. I remember having morning tea with everyone at the table. I think my grandma had made homemade pancakes with jam and cream. I told my parents I needed to use the bathroom, so I left the kitchen, turned right, and went straight down the hall. To the right was the bathroom. For whatever reason, my grandma had a huge round mirror placed directly across from the bathroom, hanging on the wall. Back then, I was terrified of closing toilets, bathrooms, or bedroom doors. It freaked me out, so naturally, while doing my business, I left the bathroom door open, fully facing the mirror. Suddenly, I had this eerie feeling that someone was watching me. I looked at the mirror and saw an old man staring back at me. I screamed bloody murder. My parents came running down the hall, panic-stricken. I was in tears. They asked what had happened, and all I could say was, there was a man in the mirror. Naturally, my parents thought I was imagining things. They carried me back to the living room and held me until I calmed down. Once I was calm, my grandma asked me, what did the man look like? I was silent for a while. I glanced around the room, and my eyes stopped at a small photo on my grandma's coffee table. In the photo were my grandma and a man with their arms wrapped around each other. I pointed to the man in the photo and said, that was the man. Silence filled the room. My parents asked if I was sure, and I was adamant it was him. It turned out that the man in the photo was my granddad. He had died long ago before I was even born, due to a severe illness after returning from the war. I guess my granddad wanted to meet me since he never got the chance. He never visited me again, but I've always believed he was protecting and guiding me. Things only got stranger as I grew older. If you'd like to hear more paranormal stories, let me know. Threads. I believe my brother has been replaced. Originally posted to r/RBI and originally posted on July 4th, 2025. The post reads as follows. I, male 30, want to preface by saying I am not mentally ill. And this is not the schizo post you are expecting. I have no better way to articulate what I'm thinking right now. My brother, male 20, just came back from his gap year, traveling Asia in hopes that he'd find himself. We were never really close, so his lack of contact during this year didn't strike me with too much alarm. But my parents have informed me of 3 separate incidences in which they needed to consult authorities to ask about him. He's a mommy's boy, so this did seem very out of character for him. We hosted a dinner for my brother's return to the country, but upon seeing him at the airport, it was like a stranger tried to draw my brother from memory and pass that as the real thing. He looked completely different. He was severely underweight. He looked 2 to 3 inches shorter. He seemed bed-ragged and unkempt. Believe me, this was the opposite of my brother prior to this trip. He was always been a germaphobe, someone who always washes his hands twice to make sure he eliminates all the bacteria. But this guy, he smelled horrendous. He didn't even talk to us or properly acknowledge our existence. He begrudgingly gave our mom a hug and our dad a handshake. He did not say hello to me. It's been around 2 weeks, and what I've been hearing from my parents is horrifying. Apparently, he's been extremely active at night and sleeping during the day. They can only get faint murmurs out of him, and his speech is becoming increasingly nonsensical. He doesn't shower. He doesn't seem to eat. He spends all his time locked away in his room, doing something, my parents don't know what, extremely loudly. They've already contacted a doctor, and he's on a waiting list to see a therapist. I suggest getting the police involved, but they are determined not to. My mom is afraid, and I do not know what to do. I volunteered to stay over and be the peacekeeper, as our parents are getting old, and I'm personally worried about the psycho doing something to them. However, my parents have too rejected this. I was never too close with my brother, but this isn't him at all. Does anyone know what could have caused this? Or what can we do? It's like someone kidnapped my brother and replaced him with the dude from Castaway. Edit. I've seen a lot of people suggest theories, including drug use or underlying mental health issues. I had my mother over today, primarily to talk about my brother's condition. My wife was against mentioning the DNA test I ordered, so they are still unaware of my suspicions. My mom told me about the 3 incidents involving the authorities in Vietnam. The first one was a wellness check, after my parents heard nothing from him for about a week. This might have been overzealous on my mom's part. The second and third instances were actually a part of the same correspondence, but turned out to be much more disturbing than I thought. Local authorities were worried my brother and 2 other female friends have been trafficked to Laos, as they failed to return to Vietnam on time. However, this was resolved after about half a month. I have no idea the status of his friends, but I suspect they all returned to Vietnam together. With regards to my brother at present, my parents have since agreed to my suggestions of adding cameras to communal areas, as well as installing a door to stop in their own room. They have also given me news that they will go private to seek psychiatric treatment for him, starting next week. We'll keep you all updated. And then some relevant comments under this post. One commenter says, a hard drug addiction is the most likely answer. DNA testing would clear this up real quick. If the result is a match, I'd suggest you seek counseling for both of you. In that case, either he's done a lot of hard drugs and needs help, or you have some tendencies toward delusion. If the DNA is not a match, you've got your hard proof and you can probably get the help you need. The kind of resources needed to pull off the scheme you're describing would make it a very odd way to spend one's time. Finding someone similar looking enough to fool not only airport authorities, but also family has got to be difficult and expensive. If your family is not high profile, and I'm talking head of state, Fortune 500 C-suite, or otherwise ultra wealthy, it would not make any sense to pull something like this off. Even then, it's such a crazy scheme, I can't imagine anyone actually trying it. And to what end? An inheritance scheme or something? And then the OP replies saying, my family are quite controversial, particularly for Vietnam, which is mainly why my parents were against my brother's gap year to begin with. I cannot elaborate further on that regard, unfortunately, but there is definitely reason for something like this to happen. Another commenter said, I'm definitely on board with this. Please make sure you get help ASAP. Lack of sleep, hygiene, social withdrawal, etc. It has a tendency to spiral quite fast, and you should really push psychological/clinical help ASAP, not only for his safety, but your parents. It is not something that will pass by itself or can be cured with love. Please keep in mind that voices/visions usually start out quite friendly. What country did he go to? Regarding the height difference, you could easily shrink 2 inches just from terrible posture. Otherwise, it could indicate osteoporosis. Please stay safe. The OP then said, I'm not quite sure of all the countries, but I think Vietnam and Laos are a part of it. Another commenter said, do you mean that you literally think someone else is pretending to be your brother? Or are you speaking more figuratively and think your brother is just acting different? The OP then replies to this saying, it was meant to be figuratively, but I would be lying if I said I was not genuinely concerned. And then the final comment on this thread that is, worth note, reads as follows. Sorry, but he's in your house, doing things in his room loudly, and you can't go and check on him? What the fuck? Break down the door. What the fuck are you doing? Do your parents own the house, or does your brother? Remember that instance of that stupid mother who basically left her son to his own devices as he constructed a guillotine in his room to commit S-word, and the mom never saw the inside of the room because of privacy? Time to get a backbone and step up. He almost certainly is not making decisions behind that door that are good. Do what you need to, not what's comfortable. The OP then replied to this saying, my parents are in their 80s, and while they're very firmly against my interventions, they seem to give him a free pass. It's a sticky situation all around. Plus, I'm personally afraid for my parents in the event they stand up for themselves. And then the commenter replies to this OP's comment saying, wait, they had your brother in their 60s? And the OP then said he was a surrogate baby. And then the OP, 2 days later on July 6th, 2025, made a chilling and horrifying post. The post was titled, Family Member Missing. Location, France. Hey all, I'll keep this query as brief as possible. My brother has disappeared. My parents only noticed this morning, but it is likely he fled sometime last night as we booked psychiatric treatment for him on Tuesday. He is seriously unwell, and on another thread, people have claimed his condition might have been exacerbated through drug use. We don't want the police involved. We don't want this to be a public affair, as our family can't afford it right now. We live in a semi-rural town near the Swiss border, so we are hoping to find him before he hurts himself. How can we go about finding him? Any help would be appreciated. And then the top comments on this post read as follows. One commenter says, you do want the police involved. Trust me. Another commenter says, I understand not wanting to get the police involved, but there's no other choice. I've read your other post about him, and he might not only be a danger to himself, but also to other people. You shouldn't delay contacting the police any longer. Nothing good will come out of that. Best of luck, man. Another commenter said, based on your other post, you absolutely need police involved. You are worried that this can become public, but it'll be worse if he hurts himself or others. Once he is found, you need to commit him immediately. And then there's an update post. An update to my brother has been replaced. Posted on July 10th, 2025, 4 days later. The post reads as follows. Hey all, I thought I'd share an update. This will also be my last post on this site, and I want to say a quick thank you to everyone who commented. To those who provided genuine help and support, I could not be more thankful. My brother is dead. We found him in the early hours of this morning, and I've spent the rest of the day finding the courage to make this post. Maybe it's shock, but I'd like to think he died over in Vietnam. And upon his return, his body was simply catching up, rather than prolong his torment. You all do a wonderful service here, so please keep doing what you're doing. All the best. And some relevant comments on this post read as follows. Commenter, I'm so sorry for your loss. Take some time away from the internet. Take care of yourself and your parents. The OP then responds to this comment saying, they are a lot more devastated than I am. And I think it's because they view the past 20 years to be a waste. I don't view it this way. My brother lit up every room, and every moment I had with him was cherished. However, I do also believe this moment was inevitable since he returned. In a weird way, I'm glad he went out on his own terms rather than endure what could have been years of pain. Then some other comments read as follows. I remember your other post. I'm so sorry for your loss. It sounds like, at the very least, you may have started to grieve him some after seeing the state he was in upon his return. I hope you find peace with what happened, in whatever form that may be. My heart goes out to you and your family. Another commenter said, in addition to being sincerely sorry for what grief you and your family are enduring, I also want to say that it's because of you, your brother, and the experience you shared about his return that I just called a couple of buddies to set up visits with them this weekend. I've really been feeling like each of them have been receding and struggling quite a bit and are in need of a visit from a friend. And having just made those calls, I'm now terrified what might have happened if I hadn't come across your posts and been moved to action. No matter what may or may not have happened, if I didn't reach out to my buddies, just know that your candor and your brother's struggles have probably had some potentially life-saving effects for a couple strangers. And the final comment I will read reads as follows. We wish you a lot of strength in these hard times. No idea what he went through over in Vietnam, but it must have been soul-wrecking. Take time for yourself and your family, because this will leave a big scar. And the OP has since deleted his account. And wow, this was one of the most disturbing and depressing Reddit posts I've read in a long, long time. I mean, there's just so many questions, and it seems like the OP has so many questions. I mean, number one, I just hope the OP is doing better now and can deal with this and just his entire family. I mean, I can imagine. But I just have so many questions regarding what happened in Vietnam and when he was abroad. What happened? Was it drug use? Was he kidnapped and just traumatized to the nth degree? Or did something else happen that no one else is considering? I really don't know. And I really hope that, I don't know, his family finds some, solace in these horrific times that they just went through. But yeah, that truly shook me. I mean, I couldn't believe that final post when he said his brother passed away. I mean, just wow, that hit me so hard. And I just wonder what happened to him. I mean, that's so terrifying that his brother left and never came back the same. Do you guys have any ideas? If you do, comment down below. I'm really, really curious as to if you guys have any decent ideas of what the fuck happened when he was abroad. Because this was truly a disturbing post. On to the next one. OP is certain her upstairs neighbor is stalking her through unknown means. Originally posted on r/RBI. And originally posted on July 8th, 2021, and her original title reads as follows. Video proof. upstairs neighbor stalks me. Yes, I know what you're thinking. I've had a psychological evaluation, can supply proof to mods, 10-minute compilation video, 90 plus pages of time-stamped incidents, and my carbon monoxide detector works fine. Before watching the video, please be in a silent room. Use headphones. Turn volume to maximum. Person in the unit above. Background: me, single, black, female from the US. Her, single, white, female from Ireland. I can't even begin to describe how unbelievable and frightening this situation is. It started shortly after I moved into my apartment on September 1st, 2020. My therapist picked up on the fact I seemed uneasy and asked if I felt safe. At the time, I had not tuned into my surroundings much, but realized she was right and I hadn't been relaxing. I'd soon learn why. Inexplicably, my neighbor above would follow me from room to room and hover over me. For example, if I'm in my bedroom, she will already be in the room above it. If I get up to go to my kitchen, she will tail behind seconds after. If I go back to my room, she will do the same, sometimes stomping. She's literally my shadow. For the first few months, she did this nearly every single time I got up to do something, even during more intimate moments, like taking a shower or using the bathroom. Dumbfounded, I asked friends if they'd ever been able to hear their downstairs neighbors. I've never heard them in past places and can't hear those below me now. I took detailed notes for a week before, realizing things weren't a coincidence. The first person I told was my therapist. She encouraged me to seek out an evaluation, and I did. Not having any history of such illnesses, I never doubted my observations, but still wanted to rule out the onset of something like schizophrenia. I'm fine in that regard. It sounds crazy, but for the longest time, I've suspected there might be hidden cameras in my apartment. There have been too many things I've done that she's reacted to that wouldn't be possible without seeing me. And honestly, hidden camera crimes will become more frequent once people realize how easy they are to get on sites like Amazon. They're already an issue in places like South Korea. Why I think there's more to this. She never, ever leaves her apartment, and until May, never appeared to have any visitors. Those visitors were some of the tenants on my floor. They moved out last weekish. When I complained to the landlord in October, kept it vague to not seem insane, he told me maintenance was never able to get into her unit. He also said 2 people lived there and that 1 was unemployed. Said he would talk to her in person, which I didn't get as we were still in lockdown. Landlord then went MIA and hired property management. Her roommate secretly moved out last year. All the tenants on her floor moved out by June. All units in the building are on September leases with the exception of 1. One of the tenants on her floor had a roommate who appeared to move out during the middle of the year. Someone left a bottle of bleach square on my doormat. And then there's an image. This has racist connotations, and bleach/acid attacks are not uncommon in Europe. I suspect she might have done it. I could not hear the tenants below me, and I could barely hear those next to me before they moved out. The only sounds I rarely hear from my upstairs neighbors are her stomping, smoke alarm, and when she first turns on her shower. This isn't an installation problem. Never got a signed copy of the lease. This has caused me a significant amount of fear and exacerbated my medical issues. I've lost months of work and have spent nearly a quarter of my lease living with friends. I live very much in fear this person could harm me as they are fixated on me 24/7 and never, ever leave their apartment. This is an extremely strange situation, and given how folks in my periphery have behaved, I believe someone knows something. I can't keep quiet about this any longer in fear she might do this to someone else. I'm hoping that by sharing this story, the community might be able to help me with the following: identify places where cameras can hide, / detecting different types of cameras, Wi-Fi enabled, SD card based, etc. Any help with this would be much appreciated. Thank you for your time. And now I'm going to play the video, and I'm just going to play bits and pieces of it because it's like 10 minutes long. So here it is. What's your thoughts on this? You can faintly hear the footsteps in the background, but here, take a listen. And then the OP replies to some questions in the comments. The first question being, does she still follow you from room to room if the lights are completely off and it's dark in your apartment? I find it odd that she follows from room to room if she's watching you with cameras. Maybe she has a tablet with a live feed that she walks around with? Try seeing if she follows you when she shouldn't be able to see you. And then the OP replies saying, yes, she still follows me even when it's dark in my apartment. I only ever really have one light on because of this. I even shower in the dark. I've wondered why she follows me if she can remain stationary, but I suspect it's because she might be trying to prank me with this. Also, I assume there's a desk right above my bed. I hear her as she gets out of a rolling chair, and I'm in my room much of the time. So that could potentially be a viewing location. That tip about the car is clever. Unfortunately, I don't have one, but thank you for your helpful comment. And apparently the OP took the upstairs neighbor to court, and someone in the thread said, what did you take her to court for, and what was the outcome? It sounds like there's some history between the two of you. Is she bitter or trying to get revenge? The OP then replies saying, I took her to court to try to get her to stop stalking me. I didn't have video evidence at the time, just my logs. The judge denied the order for two reasons. Number one, he said I could not prove a motive. Number two, she tried to claim her roommate might be the one harassing me, as she, the stalker, works at a physical location. The truth was that her roommate secretly moved out months prior, and my stalker is always home. And then someone else comments asking, can you explain your interactions with the neighbor at all? And the OP replies to this comment saying, I only had one interaction face to face, and that was when I confronted her before taking her to court to see her face. If it's something I've done to her, I would be none the wiser. I've had two people witness some of it, but she toned it down quite a bit when they were here. Even if I whip out my phone to record, she'll stop following me. The police in my area are aware, but just not about the possibility of hidden cameras. I didn't want them to think I was insane and have me committed against my will. I'd be happy if they could come take a look, but not sure if that's within their domain. And then she continues talking about some other stuff, and then back to some more relevant stuff. She says, back in November, I went up to her floor asking why she'd been stopping deliberately all the time. I was going through a lot and just wanted this to stop, so I was bluntly asked. I only confronted her so that I could match her face with the one I saw on her social media profiles, to make sure I had the right person. At first she denied it, but when I told her she'd be getting a letter in the mail, she immediately went quiet. When I went downstairs to my unit, she stomped above me once very loudly and didn't bug me for the rest of the day. The next day or so, she left her apartment and didn't seem to return until a few days after the hearing. And then the OP starts giving updates as to what she does after this original post. The first update reads as follows. Thank you so much to everyone who responded. Feeling supported and validated has been overwhelming in a good way these last few hours. It's been a long road dealing with this, and I'm not sure what happens from here. At the very least, it might expose a new way people are able to stalk others. On the surface, her actions seem comical, but her methods are worrisome. I also appreciate the skepticism from some posters, because even through all of this, I have to maintain some as well, if only to preserve my sanity. I wasn't able to test for cameras last night, as she stayed up as late as I did, so I ended up falling asleep. I will try again tonight though. My friend has also just arrived this morning, and I'll keep this thread updated. Second update. Thank you all once again for commenting. I'll try to get through as many comments as possible to help provide more info. My friend has been working at my place since this morning. I have largely stayed in my bedroom while she has been in another room at her computer. We've noticed the following. When my friend was setting up her computer in the morning, my neighbor came above us briefly before walking away. When I left my apartment for a little over an hour, my friend said she came above her, stomped for a bit, then stayed mostly silent. She did not follow my friend around, but my friend said she was mostly at her desk and didn't really walk around. When I returned to my apartment, I took a shower. My friend and I heard my neighbor above, near my bathroom, as she stomped periodically throughout my shower. She's above me in my bedroom as I type this. Largely uneventful stuff, but we're keeping an eye on things. I've seen a few comments asking why I'm waiting until nighttime. Given some of the advice about detecting IR light, I figure waiting until it's dark as possible would be ideal. It's also quieter, so I can listen for any sounds. I'll update later once my friend and I do a search. Thank you all once again for your help. And the third update reads as follows. My friend and I spent the last 2 hours removing light fixtures, checking outlets, small crevices, little holes in the walls, etc. We did not find anything conclusive, but we will search again after dinner. We'll be in the apartment. Fourth update. We searched again and did not find anything. Thank you all for your helpful comments regarding finding hidden cameras. I'll do one last check tomorrow, but still not sure what to make of the situation. Fifth update. A kind Redditor helped me get my cameras back online and check to make sure no unknown devices were connected to my Wi-Fi. To give more information on these searches we did this weekend, we 1. Removed light fixtures and checked for anything out of place, inspected the many holes in the walls, crevices, etc., checked the vents, outlets, fire alarm, etc., turned off all lights and used our phones to check for any infrared lights. We did not find anything, which I'll admit gave me some peace of mind. I know that it's an unbelievable scenario, so maintaining some skepticism is definitely key. I have a few next steps in mind I'll be pursuing. Once again, thank you all so much for your help, comments, and skepticism. If anything of note happens, I'll create a new thread to update RBI. Have a great week. And then some relevant comments that the OP was replying to. One commenter said, looking at this logically, if there are cameras in your apartment, it means that either someone has come into your apartment and hardwired cameras into every room of your house, or that someone is regularly coming into your apartment to swap out batteries. Do either of those options sound likely to you? And the OP then replies saying, your reasoning is very sound, and I too have thought about how unlikely such a scenario might be. If there are cameras, I doubt they'd be battery powered as the harassment is so persistent. If they're hardwired, how could that happen? I don't see anything obvious, so this too becomes difficult to prove. Believe it or not, her following me around occurred nearly every time I got up to do something the first few months. I'd leave for a few hours daily, always around the same time, and come home around 5 or 6. I assumed she did whatever in those time periods, but when I was home, she'd be fixated on me. The part about her staying up is also true. I know it sounds crazy. I've tested this countless times, changing my sleeping schedule. Yesterday, I was up later than usual, replying to comments and looking for an opportunity to search, but she would stop every so often, which is how I knew she was still awake. I'm not sure what this person does, and I being someone who is very introverted, even this perplexes me. I have no idea why someone might dedicate so much time to harass a perfect stranger. As your last question, there have been too many incidents to think this is all in my head. I understand your concerns because it's easy to make a mountain out of a molehill. In some sick way, I hope they exist, just to prove that this isn't all in my head. Thank you for your comments, and I'll make sure to keep some skepticism in mind. And then another comment reads, I don't know what to think except you should trust your gut when something is off. And then someone else replies saying, nope. Believing you're being stalked is one of the most common delusions there is. It's so common. It contributes to the mishandling of cases by police when someone is actually being stalked. Stalking, especially by people you don't know and strangers, is even less common event. Entertaining this stuff is why actual targets end up being killed. OP has offered nothing to support their claim, but has posted many comments that show mental instability like at the top of this post, implying that things got weird after posting and that there's a new way to stalk them. This person is in a crisis. And then the OP replies to this comment saying, "The weirdness I mentioned was a series of strange texts I got from an unknown number shortly after I made the post. I was also up until 3 a.m. and woke up around 6 a.m. to see that my thread was gone. I spoke to a mod who thankfully added it back. Turned out to be an auto mod. I was pretty nervous after posting the original thread since I'm doing this so publicly for the first time. So I was worried there was a connection." And the OP has never been heard from again. So what do you think happened? Or what do you think was happening? Do you think the OP was mentally unstable? Do you think the upstairs neighbor was mentally unstable or just playing a weird prank? Or just like, what do you think was happening? Because I have no clue what was going on with OP and what she was going through. In the video, you can hear it. You know, it's very weird. You can definitely hear the footsteps, but why would the upstairs neighbor just follow directly above her downstairs neighbor, the OP? So weird. And please leave your thoughts down below and let me know what you think, because I'm kind of stumped. I have no idea what the upstairs neighbor was doing. Very creepy. My husband killed someone and can't cope. Originally posted to r/true off my chest. Posted on July 28th, 2023. The post reads as follows. 5 months ago, a woman purposely walked in front of my husband's truck. He struck her and was killed. Much like the people who killed their family before committing an S-word. She was so selfish, basically taking him with her. He quit on the spot. His employer should have recognized that he was in distress and given him some time off instead of accepting his resignation, but they didn't. I'm 8 months pregnant, and before someone says, "You shouldn't have kids if you can't afford them," I know. We are in a world of hurt right now, and it's only going to get worse. The accident brought up bad juju from an accident 10 years ago where he lost his wife and son. He has anxiety that he didn't have before. He goes to therapy but hasn't driven since the accident. He would rather walk in 100-degree heat than get behind the wheel. He has driven trucks for nearly 13 years. It's all he knows. I know mental health is so important, but we are at a dead end. I won't insult him by acting like I know what he is going through or what he is feeling, but we can't afford for him to grieve any longer. I have been telling him for the last month that we are running out of money. We have less than $100 to our names, and our pantry is bare. Life can't wait for him to get ready. I don't know what ultimatum I can give him that will snap him back to reality, but next week, we are going to be living on the street. We are on a month-to-month lease because we don't have the best credit, so if we don't pay, we are out. I've already pushed our car payment back as much as I could. We've used our get-out-of-free-jail cards, used all generosity from our family and friends, and I've exhausted local resources. I work full-time in a salon and simply don't make enough to support us. I try finding odd side jobs, but I'm limited until after I give birth. I don't want to come off as insensitive, but he needs to go back to work. We had a small savings that we have been using, but that money is gone. My husband insisted he help out the woman's family with final expenses, which I was against, but he did it anyway. He feels guilty. And I feel like the worst bitch wife in the world saying all this, but I can't do this alone. And then she gives an update. Update number 1, posted on August 12th, 2023. My husband committed S-word in front of me. This happened a few days ago, and it's a cruel, twisted irony that I made this Reddit asking how hard I should push him to go back to work. My last post was about how we were going to lose our place because my husband couldn't recover after a woman stepped in front of his semi 7-ish months ago. I said it was like she took him with her. Now he is actually gone, and it's not even the same. Before I get some assholes asking, why are you posting right now? I don't know what to do. I notified his family. After my last post, I pushed him to try to get his job back, and they took him back with open arms, which was a huge blessing and surprise. When I called his boss yesterday to tell him my husband wouldn't be coming back, he told me that the company would pay for his funeral. He had been with them for nearly 10 years before he abruptly quit the day of the accident. He needed therapy and time off, but thought the easiest thing would be to quit and try and handle it alone. If you have people in your corner, and if you have resources available to you, please use them. Did you know if someone unalives themselves in your house, you are responsible for cleanup? If you're renting and don't have renter's insurance, it's on you. I'm 8 months pregnant and I'm being induced next week, and I can't even go inside my house. I contacted the church we had been to on and off, where we got married, and S-word is a sin, so no help there. I think I was too hard on him in the last few weeks. I had let the stress build up and didn't tell him how bad things were until it was too late. He thought, oh, she can handle it like she always does. We have to stop thinking like that. And I mean anyone who is reading this, because I'm sure you do it too. I brought up adoption because who would choose to bring a child into this world being poor? This is what a lot of comments told me, and they were right. I'm being induced next week, and I don't even have a clean environment to bring a baby into. It's the last piece of my husband, and I don't know if I deserve to raise him. I know I might have seemed like an asshole about my husband. I was/am just stressed. But he was a good man who deserved to be a father, and he deserved to be here. He just didn't see that, and I think I'll have a broken heart for the rest of my life. If anyone is in my area who wants to sit on the curb and drink lukewarm bottled water with a stranger, my DMs are open. If you're struggling, please get help. You are not weak or less than. Mental health is so important and serious. Please. Update. Wow, I can't keep up with the comments. For privacy's sake, I'll just say Illinois. I have a lot of places to call, so then you, to every single kind, comment, and message. I won't say I'm okay, or that I will be anytime soon, but I'm safe. And then update number 2. Posted on August 23rd, 2023. Titled 8 pounds, 5 ounces, and 19 and a half inches. This is an update to those of you who asked on my last post, so I hope it's okay that I do so. I had my baby boy this past weekend. 8 pounds, 5 ounces, and 19 and a half inches. I wanted to share the news because when I texted his family the day he arrived, I was told they wanted to know nothing about him and didn't want to see any pictures. Heart-crushing is an understatement. Trying to sign up for survivor benefits and WIC while also filing out life insurance paperwork is surreal. I just hope it's approved ASAP. I'm keeping my baby no matter how hard it'll be. I never thought I'd be sending my husband to heaven and welcoming his boy within a week of each other. I want to believe they somehow crossed paths up there because the thought of him not meeting or never knowing his precious son is unfathomable. And I just hope that the OP is doing better now. I really hope the OP is doing better now, and her son are doing better now. And God, this one also hit me like a truck. God, this video has just been full of, depressing threads. Hopefully not too depressing for you guys, but yeah, this is some hard stuff. And just like the OP said, if you or anyone else you know is going through anything, it's better to talk to anybody than keep it within. Please just talk to somebody if you're going through something. It can get better, and it will get better. That's all I have to say, and on to the next one. Found an abandoned car in the woods, and it looks like something bad maybe happened. Originally posted to r/RBI. First posted on December 1st, 2023. I found an abandoned 1999 Honda Civic in a forest on the Nevada/California border, California side. Normally, I wouldn't think much of an abandoned car, but this just looked like something bad happened. The trunk was popped and items still inside. These items were a box of diapers, a sunshade for a pram, an infant-size winter jacket, a plush toy for an infant, and an open envelope for a paycheck from a business in Reno. The envelope has a name, address, and employee ID number on it. There was a baby carrier in the back seat, which luckily only had some trash in it and not a baby. The other things in the car was just some food and drink trash and a sock that was baby-sized. All the baby stuff was pink/girly, so I assumed the baby was a little girl as well. The name on the envelope was female as well. The car had the license plate removed, the lights and radio removed, as well as the back tires removed. Outside the car was an empty box of diapers, a high heel hanging from a tree with the sole torn up, and the matching across the clearing on the ground, and a mound of fresh dirt between the shoot tree and car. I took photos of everything, and I wrote down the VIN and the name and address on the envelope. I wandered around the surrounding area of forest a bit more, and I found a pile of women's clothes strewn about on the ground maybe 100 feet away into the tree line. These clothes were not winter appropriate. Looked like it was underwear, a bra, and some shorts. Seeing the clothes started to give me some worry for what may be the situation with this car if it's connected. I ran the VIN number through an online search, and the number doesn't come back as reported stolen. The other things that unnerved me were that everything was dry and mostly clean compared to the surroundings. We've had consistent rainfall, and the ground was muddy, yet the diaper box on the ground was dry. The cardboard didn't seem to have been rained on or anything, or even absorbed much water from the mud. The contents of the trunk were also dry and fairly clean, which seemed wrong given the fresh mud and consistent rain. The exposed metal from where the tires were removed also has not rusted yet. The car also was neatly parked in the clearing and not on the road like it got stuck in the mud or snow. I called all this into the police, gave them photos and GPS location and Forest Service road number, but I've heard nothing back. The county this forest sits in is pretty small, so I don't know if the police have the resources to even check the car out. Given that the car seemed to be freshly left there and a child is involved, I want to get some closure that whoever this belonged to is okay and this is just a stolen car left in the woods. Does anyone have advice on what I can do to get more information on what happened? I will admit this forest has always given me unnerving vibes, so maybe I'm reading too deep into this, but I do want to make sure nothing worse happened to whoever owned that car and the baby. And then the OP gave us an update on December 2nd, 2023. The post reads as follows. I hope I'm doing this update correct. I have good news, y'all. This was luckily best case scenario, and my update is mundane. With the help of other users with far better detective skills than me, we're able to track down the individual's Facebook page. This has been confirmed to be the individual who owned the car. She is safe and her child is safe and well. She's active on Facebook, and I contacted her with information on where her car is. She had posted about it getting stolen in early September, and no one else had stumbled upon it and told her until I did. Thank you to everyone who helped guide me to find her and help her find her car. I'm very happy this was just a creepy find and nothing more than theft. I have 2 weeks to get away from my husband. Originally posted to r/offmychest. Originally posted on April 27th, 2024. Throwaway account, as my husband and in-laws are following my main account. I, 29 female, have been married to my husband, 30 male, who I'll call Alex. Alex and I met in college during our freshman year. We started off as just friends and got married 7 months ago. I've gotten along with his family, but we aren't super close, but we're friendly enough. The problem is that Alex has begun to make me incredibly uncomfortable. Firstly, he's begun to ask me who I'm meeting with, where, what we plan on doing, how long every single time I leave the house without him. At first, I just thought he was being protective and a good partner just in case something happened. But then he started checking my phone after the visits, vetting and researching each of my friends as well. He also has been pursuing me to link my bank account to his, as he's in charge of the finances when he was perfectly fine with keeping them separate before. We fight about it almost every day. Finally, yesterday, when he was preparing to go on a work trip for 2 weeks in California, he demanded I wear a tracker so he could keep an eye on me while he's gone. I can't do this anymore. I feel like I'm suffocating, and his family, who I've spoken to about his worrying behavior, just said he's being careful and protective as a good husband should. I need to gather my things together and find a way to be gone before he gets home without tipping him over. He's always threatened that if he ever found me cheating on him, he'd turn in divorce papers the same day. He keeps a filled out copy in his desk. I'm going to submit those the day I leave, but there's so much to do. Begin finding a new place to live, seeing if my job has any transfers available, packing and moving in 2 weeks. His return flight, May 11th, so I need to move quickly. I'm posting here because I don't have any close family, and I can't risk dragging my friends into this as we share the same friends. I just needed a place to vent, and ask if anyone has any advice on the easiest and safest way to do this. Edit. Oh my god, you guys are amazing. I never even thought to not use his divorce papers. I'll check for cameras before I start any packaging or prepping. I may also shred his divorce papers just in case and look into getting a lawyer for myself. I'm in no fault divorce state. That much I still remember, which will help. I'll update again when I know more. The tracker he wants me to use is a small clip to put on my belt or waistband. I'll wear it unless I'm going or doing something related to me leaving. No pets yet, thankfully. And then the OP gives us an update on April 28th, 2024. The update reads as follows. So, I've gotten a lot of support and helpful advice along with questions I thought I should clarify before I proceed with the update. Some asked why I'd be hiding things from Alex regarding going out and who I'm meeting with. I don't, and I have nothing to hide. However, when he begins to then double check everything I tell him with the other people there, right down to each person I talked to and what I said. Did I send any text messages? Did I order food? How much did I eat? That's when it started to feel like I was slowly being pushed into a corner. It didn't start that bad, but gradually grew worse over time. All of the Reddit subs my in-laws' families are a part of related gardening and DIY, so I highly doubt they'll see this. If so, by the time they do, I'll hopefully be gone. I talked to my job and explained things to my manager, and they promised to look into openings in other states to see if they could get me into one. They'll have an update on that in 3 days. I trust that my bank account is secured, considering he's tried to get into it before and failed. I found one camera in the kitchen, another in the living room, and one in our bedroom. As such, I've left them in place for now and done all other planning, either in the bathroom pretending I'm taking a bath. I'm honestly staying away from the domestic violence services, as my sister-in-law is unfortunately higher up in those considering she volunteers there, and I have a feeling if I did show up there, they would know in a heartbeat. I can't look for apartments until I get the update from my work, but either or, I'm still going to be leaving the state. The day before I do, I will be changing my number carrier and wiping my laptop and all of his electronics before I do. I've met with 2 lawyers so far and had them look over the paperwork. My husband had prepared and both said that it did have some clauses in it that could have caused me some trouble down the line. What alarmed all of us was the fact that several of the clauses dealt with future children and not as a hypothetical. Like several hair suggested, I have a feeling he fully intended on getting me pregnant to keep me trapped and tied to him. There are 3 other locations my job could send me to, and I have, as a precaution, begun looking into all 3 cities and housing in the areas. Just in case one of those, this is the one they send me to. Even if they don't have an opening, then they can push me into, then I will just have to quit, move, and figure things out on my own. I have enough money to live and survive for a few months until I can pick up another job. Unfortunately, all of my friends are mutuals and would likely be unaware of the consequences of saying or sharing anything I do or say with my husband. I don't have any surviving close family, and obviously my in-laws are not a good resource to rely on. I am on my own, unfortunately. Other than the wonderful bonds I've begun to make here, I will update again if I get more information or something else happens. Otherwise, I'll update when my work gets back to me. I do plan on leaving before he returns though, just to make sure that I'm not anywhere near here at that time. Update 2. April 30th, 2024. Good news. My work has an opening I qualify for that will not only shift me across the country, but also comes with a salary increase as well. I've started telling my in-laws and friends that I'm planning a surprise outing for when my husband gets back for just the 2 of us. This way, people don't give me odd looks if they see me out and about. I've even gone as far as asking mother-in-law to show me his favorite recipes. Meanwhile, I found a moving company that, while small, is willing to work in a storm. The reason is in 5 days, we're supposed to get hit with a large storm front. I plan to shut off the breaker and say we lost power if he asks, just as several people here suggested, and even send him a short clip of the storm. I will have all of my stuff moved that afternoon. and I will be flying out once the weather has cleared enough to do so. I have a lawyer who will push my divorce through, and I filed out the necessary paperwork so that I don't have to be here for it. I'm not suing for assets or alimony, and I've shredded his divorce papers as well. I've set up a cheap payphone plan through Cricket until this is all said and done, at which point I will find a new carrier, number, and phone. This one is being wiped and left behind. My laptop is provided by my work, and the IT department inspected it thoroughly, and it was clean, thankfully. No other electronic aside from my laptop, and new phone will be coming with me. If Alex needs to talk to me, he can do it through my lawyer. Not sure if anything else will happen. My fingers are crossed that he doesn't think anything's amiss until after I leave. And I'm not turning the breaker back on when I do. He can when he gets home. My work is covering the plane ticket, so that at least is one expense I don't have to finagle in. Update 3, posted on May 7th, 2024. I have 2 weeks to get away from my husband. It's been a busy week, but I've gotten so much done. Firstly, I am now out of the house and am currently in a hotel while I look for an apartment. It's a big city, bustling with people no matter where you look. We had a pretty bad storm system hit back home that actually lasted 2 days. High winds, thunder, lightning, and even hail everywhere. I didn't take much from the house: my documents, clothes, and important sentimental items. I left all the furniture and electronics behind. I cleaned the house top to bottom and took pictures on my phone so we couldn't claim I damaged anything when I left. My lawyer has already started divorce proceedings, and my husband will be served on the 8th. His plane is due to land early morning, and the sheriff will be there at the house waiting for him. He is very much about public appearances and reputation. My lawyer will be calling him out as well to inform him that I am more than willing to air out everything to the public about his actions if it means securing my freedom from him. I will go to court as long as I must to get this pushed through. I haven't told our friends or his in-laws yet. I will do that while he is on the flight to prevent him from getting wind of it before he's handed the divorce papers. I'll be calling around and explaining why we're getting divorced, to try and prevent him from twisting this into somehow being my fault. I don't want him trying to claim I had an affair or something, so I want to get the truth out before he can twist this. I'm doing okay. I'm tired, but yet I feel almost jittery and off kilter. I keep looking over my shoulder and monitoring what I say, even when I don't really need to anymore. Hopefully, that will fade soon. My work is covering the cost of the hotel, and I'm working on getting my other things in order. I also need to find a new GP, as I want to get a full test just to make sure everything is okay. I don't know when my next update will be, probably when the divorce papers are filed, or if we have to go to court to push them through. I'll try to keep my head up, but it feels like I'm in a whirlwind of something with so many things to do and think about. I kind of thought it would be easier once I got out of the house, but while the fear is smaller, somehow the number of tasks only seems to have grown. And then the OP makes a 4th update, and this is the final update. Posted on May 14th, 2024. Sorry, I haven't updated for a while. Things got hectic and a bit chaotic, honestly. Firstly, I'm working on getting an apartment still and have applications in at 3 different places and will hopefully hear back from them soon. I'm still going into work here at the new location, so I don't have to worry about burning through my emergency savings completely. I've gotten a lot of emails from Alex, his family, and our old group of friends asking question after question. I have only sent one return email to Alex explaining that I don't believe we are truly compatible, and it is best we separate now. That his treatment of me when I'd done nothing to deserve as such was just as much of a deal breaker as cheating was for him. I ended the email with the statement that I would not be contacting him further, and anything else he needed to pass on to me or vice versa would be done through my lawyer. For his friends and family, I just typed up one email outlining everything that had happened and why I left. I told him that I wished them no ill will, but that such treatment of his wife and partner was not acceptable. That should Alex get remarried in the future, I wish they would help support both partners and not just Alex. Alex, from what my lawyer told me, was livid when he was served. The sheriff actually ended up booking him for assault on an officer and menacing due to the threats he was shouting. His father bailed him out in a few hours, but with the testimony of the sheriff, my lawyer believes I have a very good chance at getting a restraining order. Alex, upon returning to the house, apparently lost his temper again, breaking the dining table into pieces, as well as the TV, and putting several holes in the walls. At least, that's what one of the emails from one of our friends reported, as Alex called him to help him clean up the mess. My lawyer already has pictures of the house I took with timestamps as evidence. Nothing had been damaged by me. My friend reported that Alex tried to claim I'd been the one to trash the house, but the holes in the wall were at head height. Alex is 6'3" and I'm 5'4", so he knew that was false. Either way, taking the pictures definitely will help me, so again, thank you for everyone here for the advice, because I never would have thought of that on my own. My work won't share details of where I am, as I do work with some higher end clientele who value security, and that information won't be gossiped about. And no, I'm not some stripper or escort. I deal with contracts, notary, and business management. As such, even if Alex tried to use my work to find me, he wouldn't succeed. And that was the final update from OP. And this is just a good lesson. If you are in a relationship where things are not going great, or your partner is abusive in some sort of way, you can get out of it. You're not stuck in it, and you can get out of it and improve your life. And yeah, it's scary. Luckily, the OP, got out all right, and hopefully the divorce went quick, and they are now separated. But yeah, scary stuff. On to the next one. OP's dad went missing, and the police are being hostile to her attempts to get answers. Dad missing since June 1st. And the post reads as follows. Yesterday, I found messages in my spam folder on Facebook Messenger from one of my dad's friends concerned about him. She sent the first message on June 8th. Then June 10th, she and her brother went with the police to do a welfare check. Once I found these messages, I immediately tried to call the number she left, but saw on her Facebook that she died on June 13th. Through my investigation, I found that she was found unresponsive by the same brother that visited my dad's with her. When she went with police on June 10th, they found that his car door was wide open, key in the ignition, battery dead. His front door was unlocked, and he and his dog were nowhere to be found inside. Police went again yesterday after I called. They had to cut the lock to his gate, and they found the same scene. It's a remote property, and he let it get really grown over. A search is happening today. This just seems weird to me, but maybe I'm trying to make sense of nothing. My dad has been missing since June 1st. I don't really know the kind of company he kept either. Just hoping to get some more brain power to help me churn on this. Edit. Yesterday, I went up and spent the day at my dad's property with search and rescue teams. They brought dogs out and searched for hours but came up with nothing. The lead investigator took his laptop and cell phone and is working on getting into his bank accounts. Last recorded activity from my dad is officially May 30th. They reported him as missing, and if no leads come from what they've got, then he'll be transferred to missing persons in a couple days. I'm not as concerned about the brother anymore. I found out the woman and my dad met on a dating app. He was apparently very popular with the ladies on there, and they had a bit of a tumultuous relationship, as it goes when dating several people at once, I imagine. She was in poor health, and I confirmed that from a voicemail I heard from her where she sounded terrible. She apparently died from pneumonia. My dad had some angry voicemails from his girlfriends. One in particular was super angry, and followed up with another voicemail about how her new boyfriend didn't want her hanging around my dad. That's my new top interest. My dad is 58. Edit 2. The police are still scanning his laptop and cell phone, so no updates here. His latest bank account activity was May 27th. Apparently, the police didn't even listen to his voicemails on his house phone, his main phone. So I went back to record those and to drop off a key to the investigator. I'm reaching out to a lawyer soon because I don't really know how I'm supposed to maintain his property. I did talk to the brother that went on the first welfare check with the now dead woman. He was very willing to talk with me. Someone wrote back to me from the deceased woman's account and warned me to be careful with him about the brother. I said I was sorry for her loss, and she told me that the woman had a lot of people fooled. I got her number and need to follow up on that. Seems like a mess. And I know my dad recently purchased vehicles from that family too. Currently, I'm trying to figure out who I can trust in this shit town. Everybody keeps warning me that nobody can be trusted, and it's left me feeling paranoid and alone, so I'm trying to balance getting the word out and also protecting his property. I really appreciate everyone's advice and support. I'm surprised at how wonderful you all are. Edit 3. No real updates. I've been frustrated at the county's lack of follow-up on the 2 viable leads. His latest love interest and the guy who went on the welfare check number 1. They also haven't gotten all of his bank accounts subpoenaed returned yet, so we still don't have access to his large bank account. I blew them up about this Monday, and they hung up on me, and I called the supervisor back, who invited me down to come sit with them. They basically sat me down to say that based on his medical history, they think he probably just walked off and fainted. It's not illegal to just walk off. I continued to mention the mysteriousness around his car and home were left. They mentioned all the hogs and bears up near his land. They also mentioned how busy they are with the cases that actually have bodies. Very tasteful fellas. They're also hypothesizing that when his dog died, that was his last straw. Still doesn't explain where the fuck his body is. Seems like they're trying to construct the depressed man walks off story, not the man using dating apps disappears story. Still have yet to get an attorney or PI. It's on the list. Everyone is really good at telling me what I ought to do. Meanwhile, I'm just wishing I could call Dad and talk with him about how crazy his fucking town and his friends are. First update. Well, I just wanted to thank all of you for your support on my last post. Unfortunately, Dad and the dog are still missing. Technically, his last activity was May 28th, where he was active on Facebook Messenger. The police still have his phone, laptop, and wallet. In fact, they've been logging onto his Facebook account and really confusing his friends who then believed he was back online. The most interesting update has been with the owners of the neighboring land. Dad would have them brush hog his land, and he actually didn't have running water for a couple of weeks. Still doesn't. And his thinking was that they hit a water line when they were doing some work. Last myself and my uncle talked to him, he was trying to get them to repair it, but it didn't seem to be going too well. So he has several jugs of water in his shop and was showering at a friend's place. Would be a miserable way to live. I reached out to them for more information on that. Also regarding the neighbors. The husband came by to meet me on July 2nd when they did the second welfare check and searched his land. He told me that he was friends with all the police if I needed any help getting information from them, as he owns a lot of acreage in the county. Red flag number 1. He also told me that he had recently killed a bear that supposedly charged him. Yeah, right. And had apparently dug a grave with a backhoe to bury it. Red flag number 2. The police know about this and have used it to try and convince me about the possibility that an animal harmed him. Most recently, however, the wife of his neighbor had reached out to me about renting one of the properties on his land. Dad wasn't living there, and it's a really beautiful home. They had wanted to buy it from him for several months, but he always said he would move up there after his dog died. She was old and smelly. He also had another family interested in buying the home, but he was very protective of it and wanted to keep it for himself and for me. How fortuitous of them that now Dad is out of the picture. Red flag number 3. The wife has been corresponding with me on Facebook Messenger and has offered to get me in contact with her attorney. No thanks. And she also wants first dibs on buying the land once that's an option. This was a huge shock when I originally received the message. On one hand, it's fortunate that I could maybe have tenants keeping an eye on his land and living in that beautiful home. The rent income could be used to pay his property tax, among other things, and it does make sense that they would want to buy the neighboring land. On the other hand, that is a motive if I've ever seen one. Dad was stubborn and wouldn't give up the land to anyone. And now he's out of the picture. This family has been really helpful and kind, but it just feels sketchy. I've acquired an attorney from a different county because my relationship with the police has turned very tumultuous. I've been frustrated at the pace of everything, and I've been very vocal about my disappointment. I've begged for access to his phone and laptop so I can follow up on the leads, but that's an absolute no. They've apparently met with the state police and FBI, but I haven't heard any updates. In fact, the county police asked my uncle, Dad's half-brother, if he would be their contact person because I'm so difficult, to which he refused and insisted I remain the contact person. Thanks, Unc. They're extremely dismissive and constantly talk over me, and every call I have with them is a conference call with at least 4 people on their side. Very frustrating to say the least. They printed me a flyer of his missing persons case, but I haven't been able to find it on any databases myself. They said this is because I'm a civilian and it's a long process. Whatever. My attorney is thinking through the possibility of renting and also contacting the police about the bear grave. His angle is to see the bear's stomach contents. Smart, I thought, without being too accusatory. I've been getting a lot of questions about an update and thought it was time to post one. Let me know what you guys think. I so appreciate this community and found so much support here. Thanks for letting me air this stuff out and get some educated options. Most of my friends have been avoiding the subject like it's the plague, and it's left me feeling a bit isolated. And now onto the final update. About a week ago, I got a Facebook message from the neighbor's wife that a work crew had just found some human remains doing some work about a mile from my dad's. The sheriff and investigators went to retrieve it and called me later that day to let me know they were sending it back to the lab to compare with my DNA. Honestly, I wasn't expecting quick results, but I just got the call that these remains match my DNA and are thus 99.99% my father. A complete testing report will be sent to me when it's done. I don't really know what to say. I just had a lot of support from the sub. At the times, I was feeling so overwhelmed, confused, and untrusting. So I owed you all an update. Part of me is grateful that I won't have to maintain his 31 acres for another 3 years, but part of me is just sad that my dad spent his final moments without me. I guess this is closure in some ways. Not sure if my questions about what happened to him will ever be answered. Thanks for reading and caring about me and Dad. You folks really offered me some light during this time. Shoe print outside my daughter's window. Originally posted to RBI. And here are the images the OP linked with the post. Some shoe prints, I guess, outside of her daughter's window. Scary stuff. The post reads as follows. So I believe someone is trying to look into or break into my kids' windows at night. This morning we got up, and this little Tice cozy coupe car was under my kid's window with this shoe print on it. And the picture, I'll just attach here. Yeah, crazy stuff. I am at a loss and pretty scared. I have called the police and put up a camera both outside and inside. The window was opened, and since the window leads to a closet in between bedrooms, there was a toy shelf in front of the window, which was pushed out and away from the window and wall. I have suspicions that it was our neighbor, who has always given us a bad vibe. We have a fenced-in yard, and he watches my kids over the fence. Told the 4 and 5-year-old girl that he loves them right in front of me, and then asked if he could babysit in that same sentence. Jesus Christ, that wasn't even part of this. That is crazy. Oh my God. I just have to interject through the story. Told the 4 and 5-year-old girls that he loves them right in front of me, and then asked if he could babysit. Oh my God, that is stuff of nightmares. Holy shit. Anyway, sorry for that. Let's keep going through the story. He always talks about how beautiful or adorable they are. Oh, yikes. I know the print is hard to see and tried to put multiple pics in hopes one was okay. I really appreciate any info or advice here. I'm truly scared. The kids will not be sleeping in their rooms until this is resolved. This is one of those it'll never happen to me situations, and I'm lost. Edit. If you have any questions, please ask. I'm at work, but will answer ASAP. Again, thank you so much. And then the OP leaves an update. Small update. I wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who commented with advice and ideas about what kind of shoe/boot may have caused this print. I feel a bit calmer knowing I am doing the right things by adding more cameras, window alarms, and motion lights to that area. I feel awful that I inadvertently left that window unlocked and jeopardized my kid's safety. My excuse is that it's a closet and never used, but that means nothing and it should have been locked. I've taken a ton of advice here and will also set up some noise-making traps, so if someone does get in, at least my dogs will hear it and bark to wake me. The kids will continue to have a slumber party with me until this is resolved. Last night was fun with snacks and movies, but I would expect it. Won't be fun for long, lol. Several people advised getting a fire alarm. Given my negative history with guns, I unfortunately will not be doing that yet. I'm not ready for that, but do have pepper spray and have always done some kickboxing as a hobby. I'm not disillusioned to the fact that whoever is doing this may be stronger and faster than me. I have spoken with my kids about our plan on what to do in the event someone gets in the house and feel pretty confident that they will act and not freeze. We have roleplayed it over and over. I hope it's the right thing to do and will help them. They all feel safe with me, although my confidence in keeping them safe has taken a huge hit. There were a few very compassionate and kind commenters who helped very much with that and made me feel like I will be able to fight this and keep my kids safe. Now, last night, the camera only caught a spider and a squirrel, so nothing yet. I will absolutely update if anything big happens. I tried to reply to every comment, but definitely missed a few. I can't thank you all enough for your ideas and advice, and especially the time you took out of your day to comment and help a total stranger. And then some notable comments under this post were, OP, this might go without saying, but I feel like it would be worth having a very clear conversation with your kids about this man and never going with him. If he's at the point of breaking into a window while y'all are home, he's probably on the look for opportunistic situations in which the kids aren't by your side. He might try to bait them onto his property or vehicle, and I worry they would trust him, as he is a neighbor and familiar face and someone you've been semi-cordial with. I just want to second and add on to the excellent point above. Kids are so freaking smart. They already know something is going on anyways, and telling them the full and awful truth can really help them. Not only now, but in future scary or dodgy situations. They will know their parents are not only on top of dangerous situations, but are honest with them when it really matters. And it's really important in that their parents trust them to be mature enough to be filled in on important adult things. And then the OP makes an update post about 6 months later. The OP's post reads as follows. I am back with an update. I apologize it took so long and wanted to thank everyone again for being so helpful and kind in my last post. So I put up a camera on the side of my house my daughter's windows are on. It did not take long for me to catch my neighbor opening my gate on that side of the fence and coming into my yard. I got him several times on video. Oh my God, that is so terrifying. I got chills all over reading that. That is so scary. But anyways, the post continues as follows. I got him several times on video. It's so weird, you guys. In a few of them, it looks like he is looking for something in my yard. And in one, he seriously waved at my kids through their window. It was like 1 a.m. too. Oh my, that is so scary. Holy shit. That is insane. This is actually the stuff of nightmares. I mean, I'm not a parent, but like, if I knew that some dude was staring at my kids through a window, oh my God, this is actually like terrifying shit. Anyways, let's keep reading. I obviously called the police, and the officer that came was so helpful and nice. When he saw the video of my neighbor waving at the kids, you could see him get very upset, and he was absolutely appalled. I really felt like he wouldn't blow off my concerns and was nervous about calling. The officer went over to the neighbors and spoke with him. Apparently, the neighbor was super apologetic and said he was looking for golf balls in my yard. He had no excuse for waving at my kids. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, he did not get arrested because he never tried to get into the window. He just came in the yard through the gate and walked around and looked and waved through the windows. The officer did not at that point tell the neighbor that he was caught on camera. He just trespassed him and told him to stay away and never open my gate or go into our yard again. About a week later, I get a notification at about 2 a.m. saying motion was detected. He was in my backyard. I called the police again, and the same officer came out and arrested the neighbor for trespassing. I still don't know what the neighbor's intent was. The police don't really know either. The neighbor does have a record of domestic violence and such from about 16 years ago, but nothing more recent. Since the arrest, the neighbor now knows I have a camera over there and hasn't been back. It was so scary, but everyone is safe. Until I can move, my guard will be up, and so will my camera. The kids do feel safer, and we put up some cute window film stuff that allows us to see out of the windows, but nobody can see in, even at night. I also installed some window alarms so if any of the windows are opened, an ear-piercing alarm goes off. They tested it and are confident it will wake us up, lol. So for now, we are okay and safe, but we'll always be watching and being a bit more cautious with the neighbor. It's winter, so we have not crossed paths with him, but when spring comes, I'm a bit nervous about having the kids in the yard and him talking over the fence. I'm putting up another camera that faces towards his house so I can watch the fence, and if he's watching or trying to interact with the kids while they play in the yard, I have proof and can call the police again. Thank you all again for all the advice and well wishes in my last post. You all definitely helped me feel validated in my concerns and not crazy. Without you, I may have thought I was an overprotective crazy person and pushed my gut feelings aside, so for that, I owe you. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. And wow, that is such a scary post. I mean, luckily everybody's okay and hopefully the OP can move out of the house soon. I wouldn't want to stay there with that crazy neighbor, and it's crazy he only got trespassed. I mean, why can't you get arrested for being a creep? But yeah, that is so creepy, so disgusting, and hopefully nothing else happens or happened. I wish the OP the best, but wow, that is just creepy. My elderly mom is on hospice, and her new friend gives me a bad vibe. Originally posted to r/RBI. Originally posted on January 12th, 2024. The post read as follows. I cannot for the life of me figure out why I feel like this, but all of my spidey senses are tingling on this woman. Here's a bit of background. My 40 female, elderly mom who's 70F, has been quite ill for quite some time now and is on hospice. She was living in an independent living space where it was all elderly people in apartment type units. She has been living there for about 6 or 7 months and made a few casual old people friends, but mostly kept to herself. So I thought. A couple weeks ago, my boys and I were visiting my mom. We live right down the street and visit often. When a woman walks up to us with my mom, I extended my hand to introduce myself to this woman when she dismissed the handshake and instead went in for a hug and said, "Oh, I only do hugs for family, and we're pretty much family." Okay, a little weird coming from someone I've never met before, and also never even heard a single mention of her, but I pretty much brushed it off thinking to myself that she's probably just really lonely or something. I asked my mom about this new friend, and she just says that they met there at the old people place, and she's been a really good friend to her. Great. I love when my mom has friends. It's important to have friends, but this woman just keeps giving me weird vibes and I can't pinpoint why. A few things that seem odd to me. Number 1, my mom is moving to a more traditional apartment complex this weekend, and this new friend liked the new apartment complex so much that she decided to move to the same place as well. Her apartment is not ready yet, but she'll be moving to the same complex as my mom next month. Number 2, she apparently bought my mom's dog a I have the world's best auntie sweatshirt for Christmas. They had known each other for maybe 2 months at that point. Number 3, she called the other day too. I don't really know why. I guess to give me her phone number and more formally introduce herself to me. She talked about doing a lot of caretaking stuff for my mom. Oh, I can manage her medications for her if you want. So I replied that while I appreciate the offer, there's a lot of controlled medications and hospice prefers to keep minimal people involved in the medicine stuff, and that taking on caretaking responsibilities for a friend can get exhausting, so it might be best for them to just focus on being friends rather than wearing herself out trying to take care of her. She immediately went to my mom and made it sound like I was shit-talking my own mom, saying how she's just an exhausting person, blah, blah, blah. When I confronted the new friend about going to my mom and relaying our private conversation in a totally twisted way, the friend lied and said that my mom had grabbed her phone and read it all in the text messages. It was over the phone, and not at all via text messages. When I pointed out there were no texts, she just kind of stumbled, and I dropped it because I knew it wouldn't get anywhere. And finally, every time I talk to my mom on the phone, I can hear this woman telling her what to say or adding comments in. And none of it is outwardly worrisome things, but it feels like I can't have any conversation with just my mom. I'm a very trusting person who generally tries to see the best in people. And this woman has not given me any concrete reasons to doubt her intentions and has in fact been very friendly and polite to me in all of our interactions. Nonetheless, I can't shake this feeling that there's something wrong here. I sat my mom down yesterday and had a conversation with her about my feelings towards this new friend, and she didn't get defensive at all, but disagreed with me and said that her new friend is just being kind and offering to help with the stuff because she knows my mom is not the most organized of people and could use the help. I begged my mom to please be cautious and to take the friendship slow and to keep it simply as a friendship and let me, her actual family, handle caretaking stuff. Despite no changes in medications, my mom has been more confused lately and comes across to me like she's overtaken medication, but I only can give her one dose at a time and the rest is locked up at all times, so it isn't that. But just to be safe, since she's more confused lately, I took my mom's credit and debit cards so no one can take advantage of her financially. Reddit, please help me figure out what this woman would have to gain in coming between my mom and I if it isn't medication or money. I don't know how to do a background search or if that's legal for any random person to do. But I did look this new friend up on a couple websites, and all I learned from that is that she has a lot of also known as names, but I can't find anything else. I'll pay for a background search if anyone has a recommendation for good ones. We're in California. Does any of this raise any red flags to anyone else, or am I just being too overprotective of my mom on this? Oh, I almost forgot. I called one of my mom's oldest and closest friends the other day and asked her if she's met his new friend, and if so, what was her impression. She said, "Honestly, I don't know why I feel like this, but I just get a bad feeling about her. I just feel like she's up to no good." Hearing this made me feel better in that I'm not the only one to pick up on something, but I don't know what, if anything, to do about it all. And then the OP posted an update on February 26th, 2024. The post reads as follows. "Thank you so much for all the responses and heartfelt advice. I'm so sorry to have been MIA for so long after I originally posted, but it's just been a lot. I needed to take a beat to take it all in and deal with the punches from real life that kept coming my way. Immediately after I posted that, I went to talk with my mom. I explained my concerns, and she agreed to the 2 cameras I put up in her apartment. On moving day, I was out of the apartment for a few minutes taking my kids back to my house when I logged onto the camera app to test out the settings. I overheard my mom and the friend talking about me. It was not very nice and very much seemed like the friend was just teeing things up to come between my mom and I. My mom was playing right into it. The friend, I'll just call her Fran to make it easier, was gone when I got back to the apartment, but I got into it with my mom. I was crying, telling her how hurtful it is to hear my own mother participating in a negative conversation about me after everything I do and have done for her. She cried, I cried, it was awful. But at the end, I had at least convinced her that Fran was up to no good. Mom agreed to create some distance between her and Fran, and she immediately told Fran that her behavior towards me was not going to fly any longer, and all talk of anything to do with me was off limits. Fran seemed to understand and blamed her behavior towards me on some flimsy excuse that I didn't buy for a second. All was calm for a week or so, when one morning I called my mom to check in on her, only to find out she was with Fran out running errands. When I pushed for more information, I uncovered that Fran had taken my mom to the bank so that my mom could obtain a new debit card. Oh boy. Fran very much knew I had taken my mom's debit card with my mom's blessing because my mom was having episodes of increased confusion and was not aware of who or what she was spending money on because my mom had forgotten she had given me her previous debit card. That was the final straw for me. That night, I sent Fran the following text message. Hi, Fran. Mom told me about you guys going to the bank today to get a card, and I just wanted to let you know that I know my mom appreciates your friendship, but that I do not appreciate your getting involved yourself in things you have no business being involved in. Mom and I have her finances under control between the two of us, and we do not need any assistance getting her squared away, no matter how well-meaning. She's asked me to take her card again, the new one, and has put me as the main account holder so I can be sure she has access to what she needs, but no one else does. I want to believe you're coming from a sincere place or just wanting to help my mom, but it complicates friendships greatly when you get into financial territory. I handle all of my mom's finances and medical stuff, and it's working for us that way. My mom very much appreciates having you as her friend, but she doesn't need a caretaker. I've got that covered. If you sincerely want to be her friend, you need to take a 10 giant steps back and check yourself regarding how you are coming across to me. Because from my perspective, it very much looks like you were dancing precariously close to the elder abuse line, and I'm sure you wouldn't want me to get the authorities involved here, but that's exactly what will happen if things continue down this path. Fran then responded with some BS reply akin to, "Oh my word, I would never take advantage of anyone, and I just wanted to help your mom, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and I think you and I have gone off on the wrong foot, daughter, which is my fault, but I'd like to start over again, more blah, 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 blah." I never replied to Fran further, and she has, shockingly, not really reached out to my mom since. I believe she is due to move into the apartment complex this weekend though, so we shall see if she pops back up out of the woodwork. I think she understands that I see through her attempts to come between my mom and I, and that she'll need to focus her efforts to scam people somewhere else. I notified my mom's hospice nurses and her social worker as well. I also bought a really super cool medication dispenser. I won't name it because I'm not plugging anything, but feel free to reach out to me if anyone has family members that they need some help managing medications for. It's expensive and probably cost prohibitive for a lot of folks, but it has been a game changer for me to keep my mom's medicine safe and organized. That it is locked up and syncs up to an app, so I get notified every time it dispenses a medication. That made me feel much better about Fran not having any access whatsoever to my mom's prescriptions, but the trip to the bank showed me exactly what Fran was after. I notified the bank that if Fran is with my mom, they are to contact me immediately. All in all, I think most of you were correct. Fran was using my mom for money, or she was trying to, but luckily I caught it before much damage was done. I think I've made my position on Fran clear to her, which is why she's staying away. I think I still need to contact the independent living facility about my concerns with Fran because, I swear I'm not making this as, my mom says that Fran is going to be working at the independent living facility after she moves out, and I don't want her being in a position to take advantage of anyone else. Thank you again to everyone who replied and reached out to me with resources and or advice. I read every reply, and I actually read a number of them to my mom as well. It really helped her to see Fran for who she really is. And then the OP left us with another update, posted on September 30th, 2024. Thank you to those who keep checking in with me, asking how my mom is doing, and if there's any updates. My mom is still in hospice and doing okay, all things considered. She has her good and bad days, but she's been mostly lucid lately, and I'm grateful for that. Fran has been mostly MIA. Thank goodness. Ever since I told her, in no uncertain terms, to beat it. The only time I have heard from her since was when my mom's phone wasn't working and Fran called me and left a message wanting to know if my mom was okay. I left her on read. So that told me that my mom hasn't cut her out completely, although she tells me she has, but I have, with my mom's blessing, taken control of any avenue Fran could possibly use to take advantage of my mother. I alerted the hospice nurses and social worker, and I let Fran know that I had done that as well. My mom also finally made some better friends who live nearby, and they also helped keep an eye on her for me. I did not go to the police as I didn't feel I had a case to do so, but I did let Fran know I wouldn't hesitate to do so if given reason. If Fran comes back around, my mom, or gives me any reason to think something is up, I'll update you all to let you know. But as of now, my mom is safe. I handle all her medication as well as her finances so no one can weasel their way in to try to take anything at all away from my mom. Thank you to everyone for your care and concern. And then some relevant comments. Someone says they want our pills, and the OP then says, I thought the same thing, which is why I locked them up tight. My mom agreed to a camera right over her dispenser so we can keep eyes on her medications at all times. The machine I got her is pretty cool too, and alerts me via text if the machine door is ever opened. Not that it could be because it has a passcode on it that even my mom doesn't know. So there's a lot of safeguards in place to ensure no one gets into any of the other stuff. And I think this story is a great reminder. Just be careful who your family is surrounded with, who you're surrounded with. I mean, you never know who might take advantage of you for this, that, or the other reason. So just be careful. And if you have a gut feeling, it's usually for a good reason. And yeah, there's a lot of bad people out there. So just keep your head on a swivel. And if you have a bad feeling, it's probably for a reason, like I just said. But anyways, on to the next one. Who could possibly have spare keys to my house? Originally posted on r/RBI. Hello, would just like to mention that I'm posting this from my side account. I'll try to keep it as short as possible. I moved into my first house in February. I'm mortgaging it, living in the UK. A couple months after moving in, I would pick up on odd things. For example, the doormat being halfway across the entry hallway after I came home, or misplaced items such as the TV remote, the garage remote, my vape going missing after I left it on charge before heading to work, and I still haven't found it to this day. That's not all. At first, I was worried that I may be having memory issues until I noticed more obvious signs, like food being eaten that was left on the countertops, or my bed pillows being indented as if someone lay on it, in the rug under my bed being a third folded over. Most recently, and what made me order security cameras, was when I was sick and off work. And I can swear to you, when I was in the kitchen, I heard the doorknob jiggle and the rattle of keys. This was a couple days ago. I've bought some inconspicuous looking cameras online, but I don't know what to do from here. I'm scared of catching someone wandering around my house. What do I do if I catch someone? I'm seriously dreading it. Any advice is welcome. Even some reassurance, honestly. I don't have any friends or family, so I feel a bit alone in all this. It's all a bit shit at the moment. Also forgot to add, I did call a non-emergency line after I heard what sounded like someone trying to come into the house when I was off sick. They didn't help much and asked if I have camera footage of someone trying to get in, but I didn't, especially since nothing was stolen or damaged. There wasn't much of a case. I did request to put in a statement, and that was it. Just an edit. Hello again. Thank you for everyone for all the advice. My cameras have arrived, and I will be putting them up with the help of a friend later. I've called the local locksmith and have an appointment with him to change my locks this afternoon. I will update you all if anything else comes from this. And then the OP gives us an update. Hi. Thank you for everyone's help on my previous post. After installing new cameras on Sunday, along with getting my front and back locks changed, I feel nervous, but secure. Monday afternoon, I checked the footage and found nothing amiss. However, on Tuesday afternoon, I did catch a man trying to get in through my front door. When he realized he couldn't get in, he tried the back door, which I stupidly left unlocked. I didn't think anyone would climb the fence and the hedging to get through, but it's clear it wasn't his first time. He went inside, sat on the sofa, my bed, ate some food I left out. He definitely did not look homeless, and I've never seen him before. The footage was then sent to the police, and they're trying to locate the man. They even put out a Facebook post on the police station's profile with screenshots, saying they want to speak with the man. I was told they're going to try to hang out around my home for the next few days, and if they see him try to enter again, he will be arrested. So I'm staying with my mom now, as I can't shake this dread that this man has been letting himself into my home for however long. I don't think I want to live there anymore, in all honesty. And then the OP gave us a final update. Not too long after my previous update post, my ex reached out to me. I tried to contact him a few days prior, messaged him a couple times on WhatsApp, and he ignored the messages, though he was online multiple times. I wanted to ask him if he ever made spare keys to my home before we separated, and I explained my current situation as a reason to why I'd be asking this. He sent me back a message, nearly a week later, asking to meet up. He wanted me to come to his home, but due to some previous events that led us to separating, I said I'd feel more comfortable in a public place. When we met, I asked him again about the keys. He quite plainly replied that yes, he did make a spare before he gave me my key back, but has claimed that it was a while before we separated and said that he had lost them some time ago anyway. My ex is not a very good liar, and in all honesty, I don't understand why he even asked to meet me in person, because once his eyes started darting around, I knew he was lying to me. I pressed him some more and showed him the Facebook post from the police's page. He looked at the CCTV screenshots of the man for a few minutes. I also showed him the actual footage I had of the man coming in and out. After a few minutes of silence, and what I assumed was him weighing his options, he told me that he believed the man in the footage and screenshots was his uncle. I had to press a lot to get anything else out of him. He eventually showed me a picture of his dad and uncle, and I can safely say that is most definitely the uncle that was coming into my home. I asked my ex how the uncle got my keys, along with other questions, which he would not answer a lot of them, and just kept repeating, "I don't know, I don't know." Shortly after that, he got up and left. He would not answer any messages or calls I made in the following days. I asked him if he'd be willing to speak to the police and tell them about his uncle, but he has not been cooperative at all. He wants nothing to do with this. I have spoken to the police since and told them what my ex told me. However, they would need him to willingly give a statement himself, which he refuses to do. The little I did find out was that his uncle is homeless, so I don't even know how they'd go about finding him. My ex has not spoken to me since the last time we met. He clearly doesn't want anything to do with this whole situation. His uncle has not been located anywhere, either. He's not been back since, and the cameras have not spotted him for nearly a month now. I'm back at my home now and have a security alarm system installed. My mom has been staying with me and using this time as an excuse to redo my back garden. I genuinely don't know what to think at this point. I'm just happy he's not been back since, but I am increasingly frustrated with my ex that he won't speak to the police, because they can't do much without his statement identifying that he knows the man in the footage. It also doesn't help that the uncle is homeless and doesn't have an address or job to his name. And that is so scary. I hate the idea of someone living in my house and me not knowing. That is like literally the scariest thing I can imagine. And I hate stories like this because they're so scary to me. Literally my worst nightmare. And if you thought that was scary as well, please comment down below what's your thoughts on it,